Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing to refrain in a moment of silence for those who serve us here and abroad. Thank you. So the first item I have on my agenda tonight is State Rep Doug Thomas is here to tell us about Twin State Clean Energy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Doug Thomas, 143 Mammoth Road, and I'm here because I feel good today because I know about a year ago I was here and brought a little bit of downer news about possible rolling blackouts in the future and because of lack of energy coming into the state. Today, I'd like to announce, like some of you might know, that there is a project that's being proposed. It's called the Twin States Clean Energy Link Proposal, and it proposes to bring approximately 1,200 megawatts of clean hydropower down from Hydro-Quebec. Now, this project is different than what projects we were before in the past to some extent, but we know that we need this power. The entire grid needs this power. All New England needs this power. We're short quite a few thousand megawatts projected in the future. And although this won't be a panacea for the entire shortage, this will go a long ways towards helping us and potentially to help reducing energy as well. So I must stress this is a proposal. Nothing has been decided yet, but the powers to be that are putting this project together are National Grid, a organization called Citizens Energy. They partnered with the IBEW for work, and also with some folks in Vermont. Twin States, it's called because it enters the U.S. via Vermont and follows state highways down, crosses over into New Hampshire around Dalton area, and follows a state highway down to Monroe, where it picks up the National Grid transmission line and brings it all the way down in here to Londonderry. The unique thing about this project, and I won't get into too many details because I know that at the next meeting, the folks here that are proposing this are due to come here, I'm told, and they will give a complete presentation. So there'll be a lot more details there. I'm here to introduce it. But the reason what makes this project unique from the previous one is that it's going to be bi-directional. And what that means is that once the new power cables are installed, when there's times of low demand here and our renewable energy via solar or wind can be produced, it can flow back up into Canada, and therefore it can be sold into Canada. So when we need the power, it comes down this way. When we have low demand and we have excess power generation from our renewables, it'll flow upward back into Canada. Hence the bi-directional. So that makes it kind of unique. I would say that there's a lot more details that would be, I'm sure people have questions, but I would leave the detailed questions to the folks when they come here in a couple of weeks to talk about their presentation. I will say this, though. This is positive news for Londonderry. You know, we are a great community here, and we thrive on good projects that come in here that help our citizens, and this is one of them. And the purpose of these folks getting to us now is they want our help in terms of support behind this project. Now I have, there's no way that we can give support until they come here, give their presentation, and answer all those questions, because I will be looking at this project very closely to make sure that it does not interfere with anyone's property, and to make sure that whatever infringements that they do have are quickly and correctly taken care of, as the council has here before in the past. So we will be looking at this very, very closely. But this is a good deal for the town. It also stands to potentially bring in several $100,000 of tax revenue per year at a minimum. So this is good news. We like to get the people behind us. I would encourage anyone with a tuning difference to area to come here and listen to their presentation or listen to it via the TV and ask questions. And it's a long process. This is just a start of them getting this project going. They'll have at least a couple years worth of permits. Then you've got the building area to go on to and everything. But I think this is a good step. It'll bring us more power into this region. It will potentially reduce some of the costs. It's something we really need. So if you have any questions, I can answer a couple now, or I'd be glad to wait for a couple of weeks when the real technical people get here.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I have two.
Yeah, sure.
How does it actually benefit Londonderry? Last time this hydro was gonna come through town, it was gonna not really benefit Londonderry. It was my understanding it was gonna bypass it. So one question is, how does the Londonderry residents benefit from it?
Well,
And number
okay.
two, where is that power station going? Do we know? Do they have a
It's not a
location
power
yet?
station. It's what they'll be doing. I'll answer the first question. Any extra power that comes into the region benefits the entire six-state region. So all of that. So the auction price of power is very, very complicated, but in the end, the cleaner, the cheaper the power that we can get goes into the mix of how they determine their rates.
Okay.
So whatever, the more power we can get down here, that's clean. In this case, clean hydro, cheaper than what they can produce from what they can produce at power plants. Then that's benefit to everybody in the entire region, really. Now, directly Londonderry, they're going to have to replace all of the cabling on the towers. That will be, in my opinion, that will be a new improvement to cabling. That's a taxable assessment, so taxes can be assessed on that. And the project to build not a station, but a small, well, you call it a station. It's a small substation, much smaller than Scobie Pond. It's much small. And the exact size of it, I don't know. Those are details that can be asked in a couple of weeks. I do know that they're looking at some space that's wide space. That they're not planning on any major tearing down, as far as I know. But that's a good question to ask them to make sure.
Okay.
I want to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that what they tell us, I want to know exactly where they want to put it, where it's not going to hurt anybody like that. The rest of it is primarily just replacing old cable with a new cable. They're up north. There might be some towers that may have to be put in to replace some old ones. I'm not aware of any in Londonderry that will be affected. Again, that's another question to ask them as well. So it's a good thing for everybody to get more power here because, as you know from last year, we are short.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Now, you had said this is a partnership with National Grid. Majority of people here in the state get their power from Eversource. Will Eversource be buying power then from National Grid with this project?
That's a good question. That's a detail that I should reserve for them when they come here in a couple of weeks. All I know about that is that they have made arrangements with Eversource because Eversource does have most of the right of way. This will all be done on existing rights of way. Some of the rights of way, I believe, belong to Eversource, and they will have an agreement with them. By the way, this does not involve the power lines that are coming in from Scobie Field. These would involve the power lines that are coming over from Litchfield, and they converge near West Road and come down but they will be on the far side of where the other project took place several years ago. So, but that's all I know about that. All those details, that's a good question to ask them.
Well, Doug, we'll be looking forward to to further information.
Well, good.
I
This
have
is a
one
positive
question.
thing, and
I have one question from the audience. Yes. Sure.
So Lynn Wiles, 46 Barley Hill Road, Chairman of the Utilities Committee, and looking forward to working with Mr. Thomas on this project. Just to give you a little bit more information, I did talk to Sean Downey, who is representing the project earlier this week. I think it's going to be a wonderful project for Londonderry. Just to give you a little bit more detail on what Doug was saying, so it's going to be using existing right-of-ways. The National Grid right-of-way coming from Monroe, New Hampshire down into Londonderry. They're planning on a substation. It's near the Westfield soccer roads. There's an intersection there with the Eversource grid as well, and that's where they're planning on the substation. I did invite Mr. Downey to one of the utility committee's meetings, and he's planning on coming probably in the July timeframe. We're kind of booked up for June right now, but I think it's an interesting project. I think it's great for New Hampshire as well as the region. So we're working on it, and I just want the council to know that. That's one of the first things we're doing as part of the new committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you.
If I might add, thank you. We need that support. I was not aware of Mr. Downey. My contact point is Caitlin Monroe. I've been dealing with her this entire time. So between the two of us, I'm sure we're going to have plenty of information, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions when they do give their presentation.
Thank you, Representative Thomas, appreciate it. Is there anyone else for public comment tonight?
Hi, Tara Miles, 11 Lancaster Drive. My pronouns are she, her. I'd like to talk today about some of the lessons I've been trying to teach my toddler, who just started preschool last year. And that sort of began her journey as a good member of our community. Every morning that I drop my daughter off at preschool, after I've told her that I love her and to have a great day, I asked her to do one more thing. I say lead with kindness. Although she's 4 years old, I've explained it to her and she gets it. So hopefully those listening this evening and here live on the video will seek to understand and potentially implement this in their day-to-day lives. Lead with kindness when you're engaging with someone who you may or may not like, who you may or may not agree with. Take the opportunity to be kind. It costs you nothing and can pay dividends. While that person doesn't always deserve your kindness, you deserve the kind of life where you're secure enough in yourself to be kind despite that. Lead with kindness. When you're in a position of leadership, take the opportunity to be a kind, inclusive leader who is thoughtful, deliberative, and seeking the best results for those you lead. Take the opportunity to lead by example. Take the opportunity to extend kindness even when it may not be extended to you, because others are watching, listening, and learning. Whether you're on a council or a board, running a local community committee, or simply seen as a leader among your community, you have the opportunity to, by example, lead with kindness, grace, and a desire to improve our community, not divide, not to create problems, but to look to find solutions that will have a positive impact across our community. And this is supported by science. A 2020 study showed that kindness spreads in a community as more people see kindness in their day-to-day life. Leading with kindness in our lives inspires kindness in those around us. So why not lead with kindness? Now, I'm not naive. Reality is, however kind my 4-year-old is, she will encounter folks that are unkind. Folks that seek to further themselves at the expense of others. Folks that look to start trouble simply because they are not fulfilled in their daily lives. People that choose to be bullies for the entertainment of it. People that will always live in the problem and not in the solution. It seems like we've been encountering a lot of that around here recently. So let me share what I've tried to teach her about that. When someone speaks poorly of you to others or of others to you, what are they looking to gain? What are their intentions? What outcome are they looking for? Is theirs an opinion you value? Their words are only as important and influential as you allow them to be. Take it with a grain of salt. Ignore it if you can. But when the time comes, and you'll know when it comes, stand up for yourself, for those you value, for your community. I'm here today for that reason. There's a small minority of folks who purport to speak for the community, but their speech is littered with insults and their intentions don't seem to align with building a better community. Rather, they'd see us divided, tiring us with their incessant onslaughts of smear campaigns and national political propaganda. We are Londonderry, a proud town of hardworking people who deserve to have the focus of our community be the community, making it a better place for all of us to live. Finally, you don't have to RSVP to every fight you're invited to. You can choose to focus on the good and what we can do in our community. Can we shut them up? If only. But no, they're largely within their rights to say and do these things. As I said in a meeting in September, just because we can say or do something doesn't mean we should. Trolls will be trolls. I choose not to RSVP yes to the drama and the narrative spun by these folks who would rather see us spend valuable tax dollars on wild goose chases looking for a problem. I choose not to RSVP yes to the hate and bad legislation they seek to spread. The only way we can see ourselves through this is to join together as a community and say, enough is enough. RSVP yes to a better Londonderry. Pressure advertisers in our local paper to pull their funds if they continue to deliver biased news and platform divisive voices. Stand up when they seek to tear down our civil servants. Write letters to the editor highlighting the good in our community. And most importantly, participate meaningfully in our community by seeking solutions, by leading with kindness, and by getting out to vote at our local elections to support those who will make our community better and to have your own voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's, please, no applauding, please. Anyone else for public comment? Name and address, please.
Yep. My name is Laura Gandia, and I am the former associate planner for the town of Londonderry.
And your address.
3 Chamberlain Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Laura Gandia. I'm the associate planner for the town of Londonderry. My interactions with the town over the past several months have been nothing but short of surreal. I worked for the town for over 7 years, where I provided the utmost customer service and worked really hard to ensure that the town's planning department was top-notch. My husband worked for the town as a police officer for over 25 years, giving his heart and soul to the community. The craziness with the town hit a different level on January 19th. A proposed reorganization plan by the town manager, 2 town council meetings, an improper analysis by the town council of its duties as elected officials and of the town charter, the approval of a proposed reorganization plan, coupled with my inability to obtain my personal belongings in a dignified manner. Then there was the stripping of my constitutional rights and freedoms and liberties with the serving of an unconstitutional no trespass order by the town manager prohibiting us from being
Okay,
at the town
Can we please
hall.
stop right here? The no trespass order is not a town council matter.
I understand.
It is not a town council matter. It is a civil matter, and you're taking legal action against the town. This is not the appropriate venue for this. I will let you continue, but this is not the appropriate venue for this. You've already taken legal action against the town.
I have
We
not.
can't comment, we can't say anything.
I have
Let's
not. Just to clarify the record, I have not taken.
Well, we'll have a difference of opinion on that, okay? Please be careful with your comments.
I will. As the trespass order further noted, that I was prohibited from going from the town hall surrounding town property to include the police station and library. The trespass order further notice, if you are otherwise present, I will make a criminal trespass complaint to the Londonderry Police Department. So what is really happening here in Londonderry? The town manager submitted a proposed reorganization plan that was never a reorganization plan, but rather a retaliatory measure. I asked the town, how is this reorganization plan working? There is no town planner, no land use assistant, and no associate planner. The assistant town manager hired a land use assistant on Monday, and now as of Friday, she's no longer there. The town hired a consultant at over $100 per hour for a plan review, a service formerly provided by the associate planner at a significantly reduced cost. The department is operating in violation of RSA 91A, and there's also been a decrease in serviceness and responsiveness. Unconstitutional trespass orders were issued by the town manager in furtherance of his retaliatory and oppressive measures. There have been no trespass orders issued in over 20 years, if ever, by the town manager. So why now, with no legitimate reason? The ACLU viewed those trespass orders as extremely problematic and unconstitutional, contacted the town, and informed it of its intent to send out a public letter detailing the town's abuses, and the town immediately removed the trespass order, even though we tried to reasonably and peacefully remove those trespass orders for over 3 months. The town manager's actions are so reprehensible and should shock the conscience of every resident in this community. I now have, as you stated, Chairman Farrell, several pending litigation matters against the town to include direct dealings, wrongful termination, and retaliation, with additional, as you are correct, lawsuits coming. So I'm here to let you know that I am extremely disappointed and saddened by these events. I am further saddened to hear that when town officials are asked what is going on, they respond that only 10% of the story is told. This gives the impression that we did something wrong. To insinuate this is defamatory and it's slanderous. We did nothing wrong. So I ask you, why does the town allow the town manager to engage in this disgraceful and harmful behavior? Where is the accountability and oversight on the town manager's costly, dishonorable, and unconstitutional actions? What happened to me and to my husband is a travesty and an injustice. I will ensure that all of the egregious actions of the town are brought to light. Our light will shine through the town's darkness.
Again, there is no applauding. There is no applauding. That goes for everybody, please. Very simply, the council will not be responding to anything. This is not a town council matter, and we do not answer anything around employee issues. One side of the story is being told, and I appreciate that, but we are not going to respond to anything. Anyone else for public comment? Name and address, please.
Christopher Gandia, 3 Chamberlain Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. How does one see the sickness of a tree when it is rotting from the inside? We are here to peel back the bark and shed light onto the darkness that is within the town hall from our personal testimony of unjust persecution. As you may know, Laura and I were finally able to get the unlawful criminal trespass orders removed once we retained the assistance of the American Civil Liberties Union, after several requests to town manager Mel Goody were denied. ACU attorneys contacted the town's attorney in response to TM Mel Goody's egregious abuses. The ACLU warned that if this unlawful order was not rescinded, a public letter was about to be sent, outlining numerous details pertaining to violations of our civil rights. Amazingly, within hours of this communication to TM Mel Goody, the unlawful criminal trespass orders were withdrawn and our freedoms were restored. I was finally able to return the items to the library that had been outstanding for almost 100 days and pay my late fines due to the unlawful and reckless actions of TM Mel Goody. I would like to note that the library is incredibly patient and gracious, willing to waive the fines. However, upon receiving legal guidance, we paid them. That same day I returned the items to the library, I was also able to visit my Londonderry PD family of 25 plus years, without fear of the town manager filing a criminal trespass complaint against me. I was also relieved of the uncomfortableness that my LPD brothers and sisters may have been feeling due to the negative circumstances TM Mel Goody created. I would imagine that many in our community will now be asking, why would TM Mel Goody improperly use his position to violate our rights and suppress our liberties? Furthermore, why would the town council let TM Mel Goody act in a reckless manner without intervening as they personally witnessed our oppression? I guess it should be of no surprise when we saw the town council choose the dark path by approving TM Mel Goody's hasty and thoughtless reorganizational plan, even when light was shed on the self-evident retaliation he took. A true reorganizational plan would have included successive training and leadership measures to maintain professional positions and quality of service to the community. One only needs to ask, what is the current state of the planning department's personnel and workload operations? Will the town council finally see the light and take prudent actions, or will the community need to make further inquiries to council members, including difficult questions pertaining to possibilities of negligent retention? We will continue to peel back the bark and expose the rot that has entered the town hall so the truth may be revealed and healing may take place to restore what the citizens of Londonderry deserve. faith in both elected and appointed leadership positions. May God bless those who gave us tremendous support and even those who have persecuted us. To them, we offer our forgiveness as we continue efforts to seek accountability.
Again, there is no applauding. There is no, all right, if you continue to applaud, we'll just clear the room. All right, stop. This is not a town council issue. There's active litigation, and we will not be responding to anything. Anyone else for public comment? Name and address, please.
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive in Londonderry. Mr. Chairman, our town manager has previously utilized his freedom of speech to put correspondence in the paper questioning the credibility of citizens in the past. So I did wish to get ahead of that, just in case any question is shed on the credibility of the statements by Laura and Chris Candia. I did file a 91A, and I have personally seen a piece of the correspondence that the ACLU New Hampshire sent to the town with their great concern regarding town manager Malaguti's remarks. So I can testify to the veracity of both of the Gandia statements. I don't know what that outburst was. I would have appreciated if you quieted it, Mr. Chairman, but
Trying to listen to you, Mr.
I
Esposito.
understand, sir. My apologies. I actually wish to encourage fellow citizens to support their local journalism as opposed to pulling their support for it. If, as a layman, you have the opportunity to interact with citizens of really any other communities around us, either those who have never been served by a local paper or those who have been served by one and no longer do, they're actually greatly concerned with those situations. They have less opportunity to bring redress to public light, and it seems like their governments operate with more impunity. So I just wish to make that public remark in response to the lady's remarks. Thank you very much.
All right, so I didn't understand anything you said. Anyone else for public comment? Hey, ladies.
Hello, Council Chair and Town Council members. My name is Erin Matlin. I'm the Library Director at the Leach Library, and with me here is my Assistant Director and Head of Technical Services, Donna Plant. We just wanted to share with you some of the things that are happening at the library. We have a lot of exciting things coming up, and we wanted to share it at this venue because we know a lot of people watch the meetings, and so we thought it was a good opportunity to kind of spread the word. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the library survey. For almost 2 months, we've had a survey out, a community survey, just asking Londonderry citizens to fill it out. It'll help us gauge and try to meet community needs for future planning. So we're excited about that. We have copies here actually at the table in the back. Also additionally in Town Hall, that community table, and then also on our website and at the library. So I encourage everybody in the community to fill it out and share your thoughts about the needs that you would like to see at the library. The deadline for that is May 31st, so coming up quick, but thank you for those who have filled it out already. And then Donna's going to talk about some more things.
Yes, so summer reading is going to start June 1st. We're very excited to offer a program for all ages. So there's a program for children, teens, and adults. This year's theme is All Together Now, which focuses on teamwork and community. So we're excited to have programs that speak to that theme. Our librarians have already started visiting the schools to promote the programs. So a lot of kids will see them in the classroom. We also preemptively want to thank our friends of the Londonderry Leach Library for sponsoring some of the programs, and many local businesses that have already donated gift cards for us to raffle off during the programs. And to kind of include with this, the Board of Trustees has decided to implement some summer hours. So those are going to be effective starting Monday, June 19th, and through Saturday, September 9th. Mainly the changes to our current hours are going to mean that we're open on Thursdays from 9 to 5 and on Saturdays from 9 to 1. We're still going to be offering curbside service upon request, and this change will allow us to offer a successful summer reading program and also prevent any service interruptions over the summer.
And then just in closing, we just want to remind everybody that the Board of Trustees, or the Library Board of Trustees, meets every month, except July and August, on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. They are open to the public, and everyone is welcome to come. The next meeting that we have is June 7th. And also, I just want to remind everyone, if you have not already come in and signed up and gotten a free library card, we encourage you to do so. If you haven't been lately, please come in, even if you have a library card, because there's a lot of new items for the collection, and some wonderful changes that we've made. So we encourage everybody to stop by. That's all.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Very
you.
much appreciate you coming in. Anyone else for public comment? Name and address,
Good
please.
evening, Maria Barut, 6 Bridle Path. Just a couple comments. These meetings are for you and to conduct town business in a transparent manner. They're also a platform for town residents to voice their concerns and opinions. You may not always agree or like those opinions, and yet it's your job to listen. All of you here choose to run for these positions. You were elected by the people of this town, and it's your duty and responsibility to follow the town charter. Try to engage in better dialogue with the community. Gavel is not the answer to the questions that you don't like to hear. And just to follow up, I remember not too many months ago when Councilman Butler asked us to get involved. I didn't get involved. I got even elected to the town position. And we are involved. We're trying to listen. When we see something that we do not like, we're going to raise questions. We ask questions. If questions are not being answered, our only way is to file 91A. I know you might not like it, but you trying to run the town in a transparent manner. So when we ask questions, please answer them. And I'm glad that the no trespass order was removed for Gandia family. Councilman Farrell saying that this is not your business to talk about it. I know that you're facing litigation, but it involves the town, it involves the residents, it costs the town. So it is a platform for them to speak about it. And just the last note to our speaker previously, Tara Miles, who spoke about kindness, and she presented a very vile statement against another resident. So I'm just hoping nobody's going to vote for her next time. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I also would like to say how happy I am that the no trespass orders were lifted. I find it very, very sad that the ACLU had to be involved, and that we as a town and our town manager as a lawyer, we reached that point. After the last town council meeting, I had some questions. I know you will probably not answer these questions, but it's worth a try. The pumping station proposal. It's my understanding you accepted the $4 million grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that mean that this is 100% go? Does that mean that putting
Accepted the grant. We're moving forward with the project, yes.
Okay. It's my understanding, but there's still an additional $7.8 million needed for the project. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's the number, is it?
The
It's
project,
a total of 7.8
correct,
million.
7.75
So there's
million,
another
Mr. Chairman.
3.7, I'm sorry, I wrote 3.8 and I've said that, $3.8 million, correct? Okay. My concern is that I do not understand how a multi-million-dollar development could be passed and partially completed without knowing exactly where the waste disposal would be handled and how much there was. I had a lengthy conversation with Kelly Karen. She explained that they knew all along that this would need to be addressed at some point. I don't know who they are, okay? I don't quite understand how construction even started at Woodmont with all this being resolved, and now you say you're in negotiations with Woodmont for the additional monies? Is this an additional construction project at Woodmont that needs this pumping station, or is it the original one? This project went on for 15 years before it went in, but yet nobody cared about what was going to happen to the waste from it. My concern is, How do we authorize, as a town, major construction, without knowing where the wastewater is going and how much wastewater would be involved would be produced? I built a home in 2006. I certainly didn't wait until it was partially constructed or half done to figure out where my septic system was going to be. Something seems off about this whole scenario. Something seems very off about this whole scenario. Something just does not seem right about this whole deal. I would really like someone to be able to explain to the town why negotiations are being made. I also want to add that I had a long conversation in the grocery store with the people involved with the Gilchrist LLC, who now, miraculously, even though they had to dig test pits originally, miraculously now are not going to have septic system, because miraculously their project is going to be all on sewer.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Ralph Jan Gregorio. I live at 16 White Plains Avenue. Okay.
Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just here today to show my appreciation and my gratitude to the Londonderry Police Department, Londonderry Fire Department, and also the Vice Chairman, Mr. Friends, for their help, their assistance, resources, effort, consideration with regards to an unsettling event. My daughter last night called me on the cell phone, crying, extremely upset. She was lost in the, I think it's called the Musquash
Yes, sir.
Conservation Area. And all I could get out of her, she told me her phone was dying. All I could get out of her was that she entered in the Hickory Hill entrance. I called the police, and the dispatcher led me to that entrance because my GPS, for some reason, couldn't find it. And when I got there, I went in there with my flashlight, yelling out her name, and I ran in there. Somebody called me out. It was I think it was a police officer, and he said, "We're going to take care of this." And they were there with cruisers, drones, ATVs. The fire department battalion chief, I believe his name was Phil, set up a command station. And it was great. Me and my wife were just about falling apart at that moment. And he calmed us down. He helped us settle us down. He told us that we're going to have the whole perimeter covered. And if she gets outside the perimeter, she's okay. She'll hit a residential home and she'll be fine. As it turned out, he was right. She hit a residential home. But I just want to say that it's very comforting to know that this town has the resources, the fire department, police department, and so on, that assist their citizens in a time of trouble. And I mean, it made a big difference to me. It made a big difference to my wife. And we're very thankful and we're very grateful.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad everything turned out great.
Yeah, it did. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Hi, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is, pardon me. My name is Peter Kimpton, 89 Fieldstone Drive.
Hi, sir.
Hi there. Good evening. I find myself startled to be in agreement with Representative Thomas on something. And that was his statement: the cleaner, the cheaper the power, the more it benefits residents. Absolutely. I completely agree. I should point out that Vermont enjoys approximately 30% lower residential electricity rates than New Hampshire does, and they are at 99% renewable energy for residential electricity. It's also true that bad air quality causes sickness. People are harmed by dirty power. However, 4 days ago, Representative Thomas was saying solar and wind may be popular now, but I believe they will prove to be too costly and unreliable in the near future. His social media pages also feature debunked memes about fake news on clean energy and climate change. So when I hear Representative Thomas say that he's going to be looking very closely at the project, that's a point of concern for me. I urge the council to practice healthy scrutiny and skepticism as you consider what is in the best interest of the residents of Londonderry. While Representative Thomas has been a part of the House Committee on Science, Technology, and Energy, we have seen New Hampshire reach a dubious distinction. We are one of the most expensive places in the continental United States for residential electricity. When I heard him mention today, he sees rights of way belonging to Eversource as a potential revenue source for them, with the energy from this project coming from a different company. I think I need to point out what's available on the Secretary of State's website, and that is that Representative Thomas has received campaign donations from Eversource. They were his second largest group donor in 2020. So I, again, would urge the council. This seems like a good project. It's certainly much more appealing than some of the previous projects that have been advocated. I urge you to be very cautious in your approach, as well as the feedback that you receive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
May I approach the bench?
You want to rebut his comments?
Speak to them. Yes?
We're not going to have a back and forth.
No, just clarify.
Kindness.
Yes. Yes, I appreciate the comments by my one and only troll on my social media site.
Well, no name
And
calling.
we have been
No,
discussing back and
Doug,
forth.
Doug, no
I will
name
set the
calling.
record straight. I will set the record straight. Mr. Kempton is correct. We do not believe that 100% renewable energy is going to be the cheapest form of energy here in the future, and we work hard to have a balance. But I would like to address one issue. The characterization that I might be on the take from Eversource is a figment of someone's imagination. It is true that in 10 years and roughly, $10,000 spent on campaigns, 95% of it out of my own pocket, it is true that one time for one campaign, I received a $250 donation from Eversource. I have to admit, I thought it would take a lot more than that for someone to think that someone would be on the take for that, but apparently he feels that's enough money for someone to be on the take. So I can't speak to what it would take for that characterization, but it's not for me. And I can point out there are numerous other issues where other representatives have taken far more contributions from a myriad of other organizations. That is the only utility or for-profit organization that has ever donated to my campaign. I don't regret it. I'm proud of it. No one can buy me for $250 for 10 years.
Let's leave it there.
I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Ray Bryson, 3 Gary Drive. We've heard a lot of comment here, but in regards to this project that we're going to be looking at, this is nothing new. This has been going on since 2017, okay? I'm not saying it's good or I'm not saying it's bad, but we have to realize who's really behind it, okay? Now, we may think it's a National Grid and we may think it's Eversource, but it's a little bigger than that. And so, we really have to look at the big picture. When people say that solar and wind is not the way to go, or we have to look at all of this, okay? So I'm not going to get into great detail here, but we have to be very careful. Any of this that we look at, we got to do our homework, and I think we are working on that now. So I think it's a great idea that they're coming in and they're going to be presenting. That's great. We got to listen to what they have to say. We may even have some that want to think about Northern Pass again, too. Maybe we'll look at that, too. We have to look at all of this. And keep in mind that a lot of it is passing through here right now. A lot of that is going to pass through here right now to be put on the grid. And it's going to be a potential benefit to Londonderry, possibly. But we have to look at it carefully. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes?
Good evening. Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I didn't expect to be speaking here tonight, but something moved me to say a few words. I've been on, I should say, I want to recognize two people who formerly worked for the town, both Laura Gandia and Beth Morrison. I feel they did a wonderful job for the town. From what I saw, Laura helping out the planning board, the zoning board, Heritage Commission, Conservation Commission, and I've only thought the best about her because she was so knowledgeable, and she always did everything pleasantly. I had no issues with her at all. I just saying for myself. And also, when she was an assistant planner. And also, I also want to thank Beth Morrison. She was wonderful as backup for the people in the planning department as the land use assistant. Again, nothing other than a wonderful job. I wanted to express this to you, how I feel, because I couldn't in another situation. And I want to give her the thanks, and also Beth Morrison publicly for a job well done, from my point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment is closed. Just to correct a couple of quick things here from public comment. The Woodmont Development Agreement was filed over 10 years ago. It's filed with the deed. If you want to know what it says, it's many pages and took many, many people to develop it. Please feel free to go and read it. With regards to things happening miraculously, the only thing that happens miraculously is in the Bible, right? Miraculous things don't happen. Things happen through hard work and through process. And following all the rules and all the laws and all the legal channels we're supposed to follow. So things don't just happen miraculously. They happen through a process. So if you're going to come in and you're going to make statements about things, go read the development agreement. Go read the process. It's a 600-acre project, which is over $1 billion. There's much more to it. There's simply coming in and making a statement and having a conversation with somebody. That's enough on that.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just...
Public comment is closed.
I responded to what you said.
Public comment is closed.
I asked
Public comment is closed. Public comment is closed. Public comment is closed. Please sit down.
I'd like to stand.
All right, before I move on to the next item,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a few things I'd like to talk about before we go any further. It's obvious I've had some comments in the last couple of meetings. I also understand that there was a letter that was sent by, I believe, Mr. Esposito, that was to the letters of the editor, I believe, at the Londonderry Times, which is fine. There was some disparaging remarks, and I'm going to make some clarification to that. What some people don't see, the emails that come back to us. I know we're elected officials, I can take some heat, but when someone starts to attack you, there comes a limit on when you have to stop. And I've been very quiet about this. And I want to read you so people's eyes open up to what we're experiencing, or I'm experiencing. I won't talk about anyone else. But an email to me from Mr. Esposito. Now, once again, Mr. Esposito and everyone in this room has a right to 91A. That's a right. And I respect that. But then again, where does it go askew? When does it become abusive? All right? Here's an email after one of my comments from Mr. Esposito, who's in the crowd tonight. It says, and this had to do with corruption and other things that people have accused the board and members of. This is what we hear. And if you think that I'm going to sit, I can take a lot of stuff, don't get me wrong, guys. I have people that I disagree with, and we're friends. I don't have a problem with that. But when you constantly get badgered, and I haven't said anything, or other councils haven't said anything, there comes a time when you just have to let it up. Quote unquote, don't you worry your little head about it, sir. There is plenty of it, and while we can play word games and hide behind decorum at the town hall meetings, the devil is in the details. Why do you think I have appointed myself as citizen auditor? So Mr. Esposito has appointed himself citizen's auditor. So let everyone understand that. So I guess he's representing the citizens of Londonderry. He's not representing me, but that's okay. Why do you think I'm asking so many questions about who authorized past expenses? It is not enough to avoid overt bad faith actions. As someone who used to advise clinicians on the ethicity of their decisions, let me tell you, one must avoid even the appearance thereunto of poor ethical conduct, something that most recent sessions of the council has not done, which that can be debated. This pressure on the council over bad faith decisions isn't going away. Okay. There is a shadow over the town council, one that hopefully some new blood will serve to dispel. Regardless of the outcome of the election, there will be a new level of scrutiny and new era of accountability. This is the final statement. And you will have the benevolent hand of Jonathan Esposito to guide you along the way. So these are the kind of emails that we get constantly. And by the way, Mr. Esposito, you can get this on 91A, but she wrote it so you have a copy of it. Here's another one. No, Mr.
order.
Chairman.
Out of order.
Mr. Chairman, there we go.
You are out of order, sir.
Here's another one from Mr. Esposito. Mr. Green, which it wasn't Mr. Green, it should have been Mr. Butler, but okay, I get that. Doubling down on your rudeness tonight and the council chair not addressing it, yet again, shameful behavior from this council. He is an out-of-control animal with the way he addresses citizens. Okay? Let me explain something to you, Mr. Esposito. I have lived in this town 36 years. I have a lot of friends in this town that would not categorize me as an animal. Okay? But please, citizens, understand what we're receiving, what we get badgered with. interesting watching Mike Malaguti stumble through the presentation on Mac's lease. Judging from public comment, you people have been making backroom deals again. Mr. Esposito, and let's everyone hear it, there was no back deals with this, okay? The owner of Max Apples, the new Max Apples, never came to the town. We had to ask him, and he came to us to introduce himself. Now, when this came out, I can tell you right now, I went to different people and said, hey, look, you're in the apple business. Why don't you put in for it? Okay? So, did I go out? Absolutely. In trying to make sure that we get the best deal that we possibly can for land that you guys own. Yeah. Did I ask Dan Hicks? Absolutely. This was years ago. Did I ask Shady Hill? Absolutely. You know why? Those people have been in town for a long time, and I know what they can do. Well, it just goes to show you that Dan Hicks and Shady Hill, they didn't put in for that. They did not put in for it. Now, when Mr. Malaguti said that he had a new agreement, I didn't even know Dan Hicks was involved in it. So, you know, when you start to think that there's backroom deals, there aren't backroom deals. But you keep going that way. Right? You keep going that way. Here's another one. This was addressed to Councilor, Chairman of the Council. Every councilor, including the town manager, is paying attention to his fee presentation for the fire department, except Chairman Farrell, who's kicked back in his chair on his cell phone for minutes at a time. Did you ever ask what he was doing? Do you know what he was doing? He was paying attention.
Again, out of order.
That's the reason.
2 warnings. There won't be a third.
He was paying attention to the time that everyone had a reason to get up and talk about, the time frame. So when you sit there and disparage him, you're wrong about it, Mr. Esposito. You're totally wrong about it. Okay, now we talk about ethics. Now we're going to talk about ethics. We're going to talk about ethics? You're an ethic guy. Before David Steinhauer passed away, and God bless him, he sent a letter to the chairman, John Farrell. Do you know what that letter stated? I'm going to tell you what it states, and think about it. The Londonderry Lions board members met on Monday, September 19th, 2022, and voted unanimously to terminate your Lion membership effective immediately. Yeah. This action was taken due to numerous violations of the International Lions Club Code of Ethics. I don't know if many people know this, but might as well get it out. Your assertion, I do not feel that Londonderry, New Hampshire Lions Club is a good place to belong or to volunteers. They've been in this town for how long? They have sold Christmas trees. They've done a real good work for people in this town. But here we have the disparaging remarks. Slandering and defaming the character of our fellow members. Okay. Violating the approved motion to keep Londonderry Lions Club personal information off all forms of social media. Publicizing personal club business. Not uniting members, instead creating division and dissension among club members. The board exercised its authority to take this action as prescribed in the club bylaws. Forfeiture of membership. You are not to attend any Lions meetings. Attaches your check in the amount of $53 for a refund of annual dues. So, the Lions Club. The Lions Club. Really? Now, for the people that think I'm a vicious animal, which of course was supported by the editor of the Londonderry Times, because they put yeah, I know you did.
Again.
Okay, here we go. There are some people that said, geez, Jim, you're doing a good job. So let me read you something on the good side, okay? Mr. Butler, thank you for standing up to that group of miserable rabble-rouser that show up at almost every meeting to complain about trivial matters. I watch most meetings and I find them ridiculous and childish. Thank you for not apologizing when no apologize is due. Keep up the good work. I will vote for you again. So, Mr. Esposito, you're not the only guy in town, and whatever your group is. And by the way, are you the chairman of the Londonderry Republican Party?
Point of order. This is not
No
public
point of
comment.
order. Well, no, I already know. I already know the answer. You are.
Please, no
And I
questions
will
to the audience.
publicly tell
Yeah.
people
Please, no
he
questions
does
to the
not
audience.
represent me, and I'm a
No
Republican.
questions to the audience.
Okay. All right. Here's another one from Mr. Esposito. Thank you for your non-apology. I believe citizens Tara Miles, who I vehemently disagree with on many political positions, that's okay, recently addressed a session of the town council and called for more kindness all around. I can see that request fell on deaf ears. It goes both ways, Mr. Esposito. It goes both ways, okay? As benefiting your unapologetic arrogance. I'm sure that if you talk to people, like I said, I've been in town 36 years or whatever, I'm sure that there are a lot of people in this town, and not a small group, that think I'm a nice guy, okay? I can't wait to receive my 91A with emails that you sent to your private distribution list. This, I guess, has something to do with Chairman Farrell. With the intent to bully me as a citizen and falsely malign the Londonderry Republican Committee. I will look forward to putting up his sick and tired of hearing from citizens signs next to all your signs next election, should you choose to run. I will personally pay for them out of my pocket. Well, I hope... That's classy. That's a good way of handling things. Now, the group. I mentioned a small group. Well, I know a few of them. I have an email from Jonathan Esposito dated March 9th. March 9th, Deb Paul was still a town council. What's that? And this was to Deb Paul, who owns the newspaper, and she was town council. Glenn Douglas, who's here tonight. Christine Hughes, which I have now realized that Christine Hughes is Christine Perez, so people know. So those are the three people that are on this list. What's that song from the Whispering back in the day? Question mark. And the beat goes on. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. I will let you know how fruitful my just asking is as soon as I get a response. No. Now, we've had a riff. Deb Paul, she was a town councilor. I have letters here if anyone wants to read them from a reporter that she hired. You should read it. Okay? So when I get a little aggravated, I think I have every right to. I will sit down and talk to anyone in this room. But to malign, to sit there and you're an agitator, and to sit there and disparage me is absolutely wrong. And now, if you continue to do it, which is your right, I will continue to let people, the town of Londonderry, not a small group, know what's going on. If you wanted to see the books, hey, the treasurer position's coming up. Why don't you get there? Why don't you run for that? Then you'll get everything you need. I think some of the 91As, quite frankly.
Is that a question for
Again, there are no questions to the.
The 91As, I always ask myself, and everyone has every right, including my wife, to 91As. You absolutely do. But every time I see 91A, I come in, I say, well, where's the connection? What's this about? In my opinion, some of your 91As is just frivolous. I can't make heads or tails of it. You have every right, no problem. But you also, and the citizens of Londonderry have to understand that that's at a cost. He's concerned, I guess I had an email and I asked Mike about how much does it cost on our emails for 91A with Mr. Esposito. Last time I checked, and I don't know if it's been brought up to date, over $10,000, $11,000. And I think it's way above that now. Wow, those $10,000 and $11,000 could get us another, could get
No
us,
point of order.
could get us another,
Point of order is denied.
another position at the town hall, the police department, the fire department. So I encourage people, if you want the 91A, there are no secrets here. If you think there's a secret, do me a favor. Why don't you write the Attorney General's office and the FBI and tell them we have a problem here and let them come in? Why don't you do that, Mr.? You know, you don't have the guts to do it, because you know why?
Jim.
Okay, all right. All right, Ron, believe me, you're new. So anyway, okay, you want me?
Every
okay,
counselor has-
hey,
you have
I'll
the
tell
same
you
right.
what.
Give
You
him
want me
his
to
time.
apologize for that statement? I will apologize. How's that? Not bad, huh? So anyway, Mr. Chairman, I've said what I needed to say. And unfortunately, the people of Londonderry need to know the other side. And if this is what I have to do, that's what I will do before we start business. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to new business. Okay? All right. New business, State of Londonderry DPW presentation, Dave Wally, Public Works Director.
Why don't you all leave now? No? No problem.
It's all yours, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just
You all right, Dave?
in the technology to catch up here. And just hit, there we go. Okay.
Was that one gonna work?
What's that? That's a new one. Oh, so we can,
Yeah, they switched them.
technology.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mrs. Assistant Town Manager. My name is Dave Wally. I am your Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities for almost 2 years now. Well, also, it's important to point out that I've been a resident for almost 24 years now and have 26 years of experience with Public Works, my previous employment. And so, after being here, like I said, almost 2 years, I think it's important to come before the board and kind of give you a snapshot as to where we are in time right now with our infrastructure within the department, our assets, what our employees deal with, the level of service that we're able to provide, and basically try to perhaps, I know there's been a lot of questions asked over the years and living in town of me, and certainly now working with the town, I've heard lots of questions, and I've been doing a lot of listening to a wide faction of people within the community and other departments and municipal leaders. You know, certain questions like, you know, why don't we plow the sidewalks in town? Why don't we have a full-time chief mechanic? Why don't we sweep the streets? Why don't we have the drop-off center open year-round? Why don't we? Why does it take so long to plow our streets in town? So what I'm hoping to do tonight is just kind of give you a glimpse inside of some of the
Just
things.
stop for a second.
Sure.
Those are all very interesting. The Public Works Department in this town does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
We have no potholes. The streets get plowed efficiently. I mean, let's take credit where credit is due. You and your team do a great job.
Thank
Right, with limited resources. So thank you.
I agree, and thank you for pausing me on that.
I like that. I like that.
I'm not here to say we're in dire straits and we got all kinds of crises.
I love
We're
that.
not in crisis
You
mode.
guys are out there working your
We're-
tails
we're-
off while we're inside being nice and sitting by the fire.
And we
thank
do,
you.
and we do, and probably my own, personal issue is that, I'm always critiquing things and I want to do better and more efficient and respond
And that's great.
better.
And
Respond
it
better to the
shows
public.
every day.
So hopefully by the end of this presentation, I'll shed a little bit of light into some of those concerns and issues, if you will. And to your point, the staff, there's 14 of us down here, and they work tremendously hard to get things accomplished in the best means possible. So just some things that we already all know. The town of Londonderry has been heavily invested in modernizing their facilities in the past 20 plus years. That's kudos to everybody in the room, right, wrong, or indifferent, that we all have our opinions and whatnot. The town of Londonderry has some phenomenal facilities. We have a brand new, I say brand new, but in my mind, anything less than 20 years is pretty impressive. So it's been quite a run for the town of Londonderry. New North Side Fire Station, a rebuilt, remodeled, if you will, enhanced, new, centralized, very modern facility, impressive facility. The South Fire Station was built some time ago. I remember what it was like when it was over by the common man there, or whatever. A new town hall as we stand in here today. Certainly a modern police station, another very impressive facility. And the Leach Library with the additions, the renovations, and also to mention the senior center had a very nice upgrade to that location as well. So, it begs the question for me, what's with Public Works? Were we overlooked? Were there other things that we just couldn't meet that challenge that we had to turn our focuses to as well, and whatnot? And I'm not saying that in any way that anything was done wrong, but perhaps now is the time that to possibly talk about this. So the main area of concerns that we're going to have, I'll address, is some of the site conditions that we have down there, the way that we store materials that we work with day in and day out and year round. Certainly our storage equipment is getting extremely expensive, and I have concerns about the way that we store it. I mean, when we're purchasing trucks now that are in excess of $200,000 each, I think that we need to start to find ways to prolong how long we have that in our operation, as opposed to just putting it on a 10-year cycle and getting another one. And those 10-year cycles are hard cycles for these trucks, and I like to see us to try and preserve them a little bit longer. We have some definitive facility inadequacies down there that you'll be seeing here a little later on that create operational efficiencies. And like, the chairman stated so eloquently, that, the employee safety and the work conditions for our staff is of concern in a way that, we want to make sure that, again, we're being efficient, we're doing things safe in a good manner. So kind of pull back the curtains here on some of this stuff. And, yeah, get a little creative. I know. My wife might differ with you on that. I'm sure she's watching at home, and I'll get a full critique of this when I get home. Love you, hon. All right, so site conditions. I'd say approximately 25% of our site at 120 High Range Road is paved. But what that does is, and with the heavy equipment that we use in and around our property and coming and going and whatnot, and lack of drainage and what have you on the property, we have muddy parking areas. This is an area right outside the building, where the employee building, where we park, and it's very self-explanatory. We get rain, we get snow, we get ice. It creates problems all around the property. Our materials are extremely important to us when we need them. This is our sand pile that we use on the roads in the wintertime. And we don't have an adequate sized shed to keep and house enough tonnage of the winter sand mix. So, and you'll see a little later on some of the problems that causes. In fact, on this very day that I took this shot, we had just smoothed that area out to where we drive into the back to get some of the sand. And the animal control officer had come down to grab a bucket of sand for a little situation he had going on, and he sunk right out of sight in there, so we had to pull him out of there. But at any rate, so, you know, it's difficult on the employees, it's difficult on the equipment, and trying to keep it clean and get all that mess and whatnot off the equipment as well. You can see we're constantly backblading and trying to smooth things out to either let them freeze or dry out, and then when they dry out, like in this time of year, now it becomes a dust bowl down there. Another challenge. So, more on the site conditions. Is ice. That's a major concern, especially our employee parking area. You can see their foot tracks in the snow and the ice and whatnot. After working long shifts, you know, you get nervous watching the employees walk out there tired. They're trying to go to their cars, and they certainly don't look like the parking lots or the roads that we plow and do such a good job on. But it's tough to plow some of the parking areas that are just dirt or mud or gravel. Creates, you know, issues and concern walking around the property. Again, you can see some of the efforts of some of the backblading that we try to. You can see some of the hot top is broken up in the corner there as well, if you want to call it that. And we have to create these swales in and around our property to get the water to try to run out of there best we can. So when employees got to go and maybe go get another spare plow, and bear in mind that all these pictures are, most of these pictures are taken in, you know, good controlled environments. This is not at nighttime when the employees have to go out there. It's pouring rain, mixture of snow and whatnot. It's dark on the property, and they got to kind of watch their step as they go. So we have slow runoffs for the water. This is another parking area on the side of the building. Might be a little bit difficult to see, but I'll point it out there. A lot of the water slowly runs off into that corner where we park, and then it freezes and creates ice around the employees' cars and whatnot, and they got to step on that to get into their vehicles. So we do have a lot of ponding water around the property. Right dead center of our yard, we have this kind of makeshift retention pond, if you will.
So you've been hiding the town swimming pool?
Yeah, there you go. Put a water. Well, you can see we got a ducky up there, and we got some other little things to try to dress it up a little.
That was good.
But
Ted.
we haven't.
You're welcome.
We haven't put a fountain in the middle yet, so it's not quite that fancy.
How deep is that?
It's about 6 feet, maybe at best.
Maybe if we put a fountain in the middle, people would throw coins in, and then we could pay
go.
for
There you go.
Yeah.
We got our funding source right there. But at any rate, so the water gets there in a variety of ways. When we wash our vehicles inside that building that we'll discuss a little bit further down the line, we actually, the building's floor was contoured because the water is not allowed to go into a basin without an oil separator and whatnot outside the building. So they took out the drainage inside the building and just let it sheet flow out of the building and then across the parking lot into that pond, which then creates ice where the guy's got to walk in and out of that door or into the side door. It then, when it gets too full, it exits that point and runs down along the side of the property down to the back where a lot of the mechanics and some of the other equipment is stored. So you can see my concerns about that. Moving on to material storage. You know, we have an undersized sand salt mix shed, as I discussed earlier, and that's there in the upper left-hand corner. You know, it's a shed that was built in 1981. Best I could find out was estimated about $8,000. So I think we've gotten our lifespan and our penny's worth out of that building. It stores about 250 tons of salt sand mix, and we use about 2,500 tons. So in a little while, you'll see the process we do to make that mix of sand and salt. And when you're doing that on the fly, you know, in your operation, and you're trying to go through that mud path to get back, and the material's all under snow and all the rain and everything, precipitation from all winter, and you're trying to blend that and then put it in a truck. It's better if you have all that done, you know, prior to the season and stored away dry, so that when you're using it, you know, it's better for the conditions out there and better on the equipment. The building in the back you see was then their, I guess you'd call their first salt building, if you will, built in '86 for about $50,000, and it has a 1,200 ton capacity. you can almost see that there's almost like a back-to-back building there. They did expand that building at some point in time, but I wasn't unable to ascertain when that happened. But it does hold 1,200 tons of salt in that building. But they're small, and they're tight, they're sized for equipment probably perhaps of yesteryear. This is our more new salt building, if you will. It's built in 2008 for $225,000, and that holds 1,500 tons of salt. So between the two salt buildings, we do have 2,700 tons of salt on hand, but again, they're in different buildings on different angles around that pond. And you can see that presents some challenges for when we have deliveries and whatnot. We stack it as high as we possibly can.
So I'm getting indications.
Yeah,
we
if
got
you
a
need
couple of
questions.
Dave, real quick question, because some people may not know. Why do we need salt sheds? Why don't we just leave it exposed?
Well, a couple of reasons for that. One, it'll make the material just as bad as the salt sand mix that we're using, but two, it's also a requirement of state law too. It has to be covered. Yeah. That's a Water Protection Act type thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we ever get replenished mid-year, or I'm sorry, mid-winter season with
On salt? It's a constant flow.
Okay.
Yeah, we like to try to, if we go out and we use, 300, 400, 600 tons of salt, we'll call the vendor and get an order in and get them going, because it'll trickle in.
Okay, so I'm assuming that deliveries cost money as well.
It's a annual state bid contract that we piggyback on with the state, and the cost is set, so it's a per ton delivery price. That includes delivery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, like I said, between the two buildings, we have about 2,700 tons. We do use 3,600 tons, so like I said, we do like to keep that replenished. There was a time, probably 20 years ago, where there was a salt shortage in the state, and we were all scrambling to try and get salt, but we're pretty fortunate where we have the two buildings, and we can almost store all of the salt that we need to get through a season. And then more importantly, too, all our construction material is uncovered. This was kind of my opening picture there, and you can see that, our gravels, again, our straight sand and whatnot is not covered, and so when you need it, you need to use that, and sometimes it'll delay our projects a little bit if your gravel bin is all completely soaked. So sometimes if we know we got a big project coming out, we may even wait and then have it brought in later. And then speaking of potholes, Chairman, we do have a cold patch bin there. As you can see, it's fairly inadequate. It's not really constructed properly per se. They've made use. The cover to keep the water, it's important to keep the water out of that material, so when you go to use it, it's still pliable and you can compact it for the temporary measures. But, they got creative and they needed a roof on it, so they must have had an old dump body kicking around somewhere, and they took that off the truck and put it on top and then cut it so that they could get the loader bucket in there to scoop it out. Now the other types of materials that we store, we have a variety of outbuildings, I call them, but storage structures, if you will. There's 9 of them on the property that we utilize, and they're mostly in the forms of trailers, sheds, old buildings that came from, I've heard stories of this was behind the old fire station, this was at the police department. At least in my time here, we moved the shed from right out here in front of Town Hall that was utilized previously by the maintenance crew at the library, and we moved that to the DPW and made use of it. And you'll see why in a moment. But old trailer bodies, and we store things in, on, under, all around them, in every way, shape, or form to try and keep things so that they're out of the elements that we're dealing with. And so what you see is you end up with, at the back of this trailer, which you can see is not very weather tight. There's a lot of water gets in there and it gets moldy and whatnot. But there's our air compressor, and then in front of that is the roller. So if you need one or the other, you may have to move things around. This trailer right here actually was in the Town Hall parking lot when I arrived here. There's very minimal storage within this building itself, but there's a lot of things that are seasonal and are needed. You see the Memorial Day flags, 4th of July flags, if you will. A lot of the PPE equipment is in there from when we did the elections, the plexiglass and whatnot. A lot of the things for the cemeteries are in there. veteran markers, the gear, if you will, for when we dig cremation graves and whatnot, and a variety of other things, some tables for town hall and other functions and whatnot that are all stored in that building. The flags for, vote here and the stands and the bases and whatnot. We actually pulled some stuff out of there so we could at least kind of get an idea of what's in it. And we rent that at, $65 a month because we didn't have the space here at town hall. I at least had it moved over to the DPW, freed up a parking space here because parking's always a challenge at town hall. And you got to have that some place that's really dry and clean, and that particular Connex was brand new, so it's doing the job. You probably notice on top of that trailer is the stairs that we store for the Old Homes Day that we hook on the trailer for dignitaries and whatnot to get up on when we're doing the parade. This other trailer is where we had a bunch of the sand barrels you can see there, other traffic control devices and what have you. And, some of these trailers and whatnot are were to meet the grades and whatnot. They're kind of installed in a fashion that's of concern and probably should be addressed in the not so distant future.
So the trailer is overhanging
Yeah. So the second photo from the top left there, those two trailers, that's the back end of them. They're up on, some cement piers and
they're overhanging like a drop
yeah,
off.
it's a drop off, a slope, and it's to keep them level for a lot of the equipment that's inside it, for obvious reasons. So.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, some of these, they're old, so they're not exactly weather tight anymore. They're not ventilated very well, somewhat unstable. They're impractical, borderline unsafe. They're not lit, so if you're in there in the nighttime trying to get something and there's no power and whatnot. So again, we're challenged with storage. Now we're moving inside the facility, if you will, that we have there on site. This is how we get our hands on some bins and whatnot, and we screw them up to the wall because we don't have the floor space so that we can store our cutting edges and whatnot on the floor. Those are extremely heavy, so you don't want those hanging off the wall. Various tools and whatnot all hanging on the walls. At the far end of that photo is where a lot of our power hand tools, chainsaws, backpack blowers, and things of that nature are stored. This is the old break room in that building. So when we got that shed from the library, we were able to put some cones and whatnot in there, and then we recaptured this area, and we really tried to, again, tuck things away where we can. So in the middle of the night, someone takes down a stop sign, or we have to quickly set up a roadblock or a detour or something like that, or whatnot. They have some stuff that's at least readily available, and they're not digging around in the dark and trying to get everything that we need. This is an example of our parts room, which is upstairs, and that's our main electrical panel right there that comes in and supplies power to the building. As you can see, we have a lot of items stored in front of it, which is something we're really not supposed to do. But again, you got to keep things off the floor and out of the way. This is some of the mechanics' work area. Small, the bench is tight to work on, and this is their grinding and welding area, if you will. And so what it encourages, and unfortunately, they store things up too high where they shouldn't be, where they got to reach overhead or get a ladder and now something falls. When the Department of Labor came in and did a little evaluation, they made us put up some chicken wire up top of that parts room just so that things might not fall off that and hit somebody when they're walking by. And we built a sound room around the air compressor there so that it's not so loud when the employees are trying to work. But then, of course, that creates a shelf, so now they're putting stuff up on top of that. And I'm not, we do what we got to do. So it creates, like I said, narrow workspaces on the work surfaces and whatnot. And, that right there is a cutoff saw mounted on the cinder block wall. Probably not the best way to do things, but, again, we make it work. And so this is our parts room, which is at the top of the flight of those stairs, which is of concern. You're up there, you're getting parts and whatnot, going up and down stairs and carrying things. That's another concern of mine. lot of flammable materials in this building, and if you're over 5'9", like one of our mechanics is, he's got to watch his head when he's up there. I'm 5'10", so even me, I'm crouched down a little bit. But I just shaved my hair a little shorter so it doesn't happen. But trying to break it up here a little bit, folks. I know this is really stimulating conversation stuff, but it is important. It's very important. So this is another one of our storage rooms, and it has a lot of flammable things in there. We have them in the cabinets and whatnot, but our oils here, some of the crude oil is stored here. A lot of the the sprays and cleaners and disinfectants and things like that are all in there. And I just I'm going to reiterate a bunch of times here. There's no sprinkler or fire system. There's no ventilation system in there. So when people are welding, cutting, torching, we all need to make sure that we're doing that in the safest way possible because, the buildings, again, it's not sprinklered. Now we'll get into our equipment. That's stored outside. The lion's share of it, I would say, is stored outside year round. It's in the sun, the rain, snow and ice. Again, it's parked in that mud, and dust bowls and whatnot. Critters and rodents get in there when they're trying to find warmth. And so, all this equipment is exposed to that year round. I just did a quick analysis of the equipment that's sitting there. In fact, you see the white pickup truck. That's actually the things you don't think about, but that's the recreations truck that they use when they're cutting grass and whatnot, and they need a place to store it in the wintertime, and they bring it down to our yard, and that's where it sits. And the value of that equipment that's sitting there is about $600,000. All of our 1 tons stay outside year round as well. Those are our workhorses of our department. Those go out on the road pretty much every day, year round. Whether if we're plowing with them, hauling material, going out doing roadside things, it's the things that the crews use to go to their job sites. And those have a value of about $260,000. A couple of our other large trucks, we don't have enough room under the canopy that we park some of the larger trucks outside under. So a couple of them do end up staying outdoors regardless. And those two have an estimation of $380,000 in value. On the back side of the building, you'll see the old famous van there that we utilize on occasion. And by my predecessor especially, Steve Cotton, that was his mobile office, if you will. And so, there it sits with our catch basin cleaning truck. And those two things have a value of $235,000. So I'll just show you real quickly some more of the elements. Even though these trucks are underneath the hangovers, they're still susceptible to, you can see the sign there, snow, falling ice, rain, whatnot. And there it was, it slid off when I took the photo. So, and then we have another lean-to pole barn, if you will, which is on the end of that salt sand shed, where we have a variety of things under there, the crack sealing machine, chippers, air compressors and whatnot, but they're all still somewhat exposed to the elements of the weather. And this was just a quick video to show, the amount of rain that pours off of it. And then, we're battling it on the property because we don't have drainage down there. So we got to deal with that type of runoff. Moving on to just the garage, and I've already touched base with it. So I know it's been a long evening so far, so I'll try and move it along here. But we don't have a room for a crimping machine. So when we blow a hydraulic line, we have a variety of lengths of hoses that we just buy pre-made. We just simply don't have the room for a crimping machine down there. And that's unfortunate because, if you have a 15-foot main line that blows on a truck and you got to section it together with 3 different parts, you're also having 3 imperfections in that line. And you're not likely to go back and, take it out and get one made appropriately. So, but we do the best we can with what we have. So we have, again, a variety of hoses laying around in that upstairs parts room. And they're very tight work quarters. Right here you can see, we kind of put the truck to the side so that if somebody has to kind of pull in and do something, we can move it over. But that's an employee right there working in tight quarters against the wall. There's another employee laying on the floor trying to get underneath that truck. And then, if they're doing that and you have an employee inside the building on the far end of it, he's washing. There's a lot of water flying around and aggressive elements. And that's an employee that's actually climbed up on the frame, again, trying to get at everything that's underneath that truck, but not being able to do it necessarily in the best way possible. It's safe there. We have a brace, so we're not violating any OSHA rules. But he could still slip, and he could still hurt himself.
Do we have
so
any-
there's things like that.
Do we have any pits or lifts or anything?
No, the facility just cannot. It's not designed to set up in that way. Probably should have let off with the size of the building and everything first, but I'll get to it. So spare parts and the tools are located in trailers. We touched on that earlier. These are those ones that are up on the stilts, if you will. So if a mechanic needs a tire, he's got to go out there, kind of wrestle it around. You'll see in the front of that the spare chains. Those are the spreader chains that actually convey the salt off the trucks. A variety of tools in here, compactors, shelves, air compressors, and whatnot, too. And, they wrestle those things around, and that's some of my concern with those two particular trailers.
So Dave, we've got an inadequate facility. What do we do?
Well, I'm almost there. Give me 5 more minutes. I waited a long time to get this presentation out here.
Okay,
I know there's a lot going on in town.
Well, listen, I think everybody's hearing you.
All right. So the exciting stuff's coming. Just trust me. All right. So the building that they're working out of was built in 1971. So just date myself a little bit younger than me, but nonetheless, it's there. It's only 3,200 square feet, which I did some quick calculation in this room. It's only about 2.5 times the size of this room that we work on large equipment and whatnot in the town's fleet. It was built for $27,000. So again, I think we've gotten our value out of that building. It's really creating limitations on our ability for our work schedule, because when you have one thing you're trying to do, like wash trucks off, it impacts somebody working directly side by side with them. If they're, this is a great illustration, the mechanics in that photo are trying to work on the truck, and you got the gentleman behind them, blasting salt off the truck and water's flying everywhere. And it really makes for a pretty difficult work environment in such a small, tight quarters. In fact, that top right corner photo, you'll see the garage door there doesn't allow us for that truck to go through that door. It's too small. So when that mechanic is done working on that truck, if the gentleman is still washing that truck behind him, he's got to stop, break it down, pull that truck out so the mechanic can get that truck out, bring in another truck, and then he can go back to resume into washing. So it just slows things down. It really closes down the garage. It's sometimes to just singular tasks. For example, when we're trying to rehab a loader and we're going to do some painting and welding fabrication, they got to take over the whole garage because the ventilation's poor. And when you're trying to paint something, you can't have guys opening the doors and dust blowing up and whatnot. It's just not good for when you're trying to prepare something for painting.
I will note the excellent job of the rehab on the loader. To the point that the fire chief, who's very particular about gear, thought that it was a brand new loader when you guys are done with the quality of work.
They do. The guys do a phenomenal job. And for me, that's one of the things that, like, geez, if we had this, how much more could we do? What higher level of a service we could provide to the taxpayers of Londonderry? And again, the welding area, I won't harp on that. So it creates some operational inefficiencies, and I'll kind of go through these quickly. You've already seen some of this stuff, and I've talked about it. We sometimes we do some of the grinding and whatnot outside, and he's doing some blasting of the paint there. You certainly don't want to do that inside the facility. But so this is some of the problems we have when we're trying to load. So you're wondering, where are they? They're not out here plowing. Why haven't they put sand down on the street yet and whatnot? And well, they're mixing up, some salt and sand mix because we're out, and they're loading it onto the trucks. And because of the moisture content that's now in the sand and what have you, it clumps up a lot on the screens. So as they're loading it, what you'll see now is he's actually putting the dump body up to try to get some of it to slide through the screens and whatnot. And you'll see some of it actually slides off the truck and what have you. And then that creates issues because now the next truck's driving up over that pile. He's trying to get loaded. But it just slows down the process of getting the trucks back out there onto the street and getting things wrapped up and what have you. This was a good moment towards the end of one of the storms where we had snow and sleet. You can kind of see it there coming down in that event. And we really wanted to get that sand and that material out on the road as quickly as possible. But, due to the inefficiencies of the material and the storage of that material, this is sometimes what ends up happening. And so, you know, you just end up with an inferior product, and also, you know, it clumps on the screens and the belts, and then that also wears on the equipment. It makes the hydraulics work harder as it's trying to pull it off. It sometimes will jam up the chain and what have you. And then you can see the rest of the trucks there. And again, sometimes when we try and watch, if we get around freezing or maybe a little bit higher, it's not pleasant, but sometimes, you know, we've got to get this equipment clean. And so it puts them outside in the weather, and you can see our good employee here, he's out there in the cold and whatnot, and he's spraying that water, and he's standing on that frame. And if that starts to freeze on that frame and he slips, you know, we can't, you know, you never want to lose an employee no matter what, but we're just such a small staff that it really has a giant impact when you lose even an employee for a little while. Now, it's not all, you know, this is just stuff of concern, but, you know, our building that we have there, it was built in 2015 for the employees. It was appropriately sized, I think, for where the department is then and now. As far as, you know, for a break room and whatnot, it was built for the cost of about $180,000. But the locker room it probably should have been a little bit bigger for the amount of gear that these guys have. So it creates a little bit of limited workspace. They're still utilizing the old lockers in the old building for the additional gear that they have. And even the mechanics put their stuff in that flammable room as well, because we just don't have enough room in that building for all the other additional lockers. And so I touched on this earlier. You got to move equipment to get it equipment. This is one of our sheds, so if the guy's going to go out and use that lawnmower, he's going to move the paint machine and vice versa. We have to move supplies to get it supplies. This is another shed. I don't know where this one came from. It's been there a while. But, you know, we have, you know, ice melt in the front and some speedy dry, but in the back is some of the mortar and stuff that you need to go on basin jobs. So you're constantly moving things around in order to get it, you know, that's time and effort. And again, you can see my footprints there in the snow when I took that photo. So, you know, they're also having to, you know, just reiterate that about moving around the property. And we have limited backup power to the garage. We have a generator for the employee building that I touched on, but the garage itself is not fully powered. So, and that's probably the most important thing, because we really, when we have to work on equipment in the middle of a snow event, you know, that's usually when we're losing power, because, you know, trees are down and wires are down, and so that's that creates some challenges as well. And I just want to praise the board because, you know, you've all been great at recognizing the fact that we are first responders. We're out there when the elements are at their worst, and people's lives are being impacted in ways that are sometimes unimaginable. But everything that we do is in response to you. So, you know, we're not just waiting for these calls to come in. You know, we do provide a very high level of service with what we have to work with. And we know that our charge is to make sure that, you know, the firefighters and the medics and the police officers and whatnot, when they got to get to a home, you know, the gentleman here had a very nice story that he shared with us earlier about Musquatch. Now, you know, let's pretend that that's in the wintertime. You know, this last storm we had was the one that I was concerned with the most when I got here, that how vulnerable we are when we finally get back into some real, you know, really tough storms in New England. That 16-inch storm in early March there was a brute, and it took 2 of our trucks out, and so that created some challenges. And around the property, that trailer there is actually where we store our signs, and you can see we have, you know, some stairs that go up to it, no railing, they're very unlevel. So I'm constantly worrying about guys slip tripping and falling. I'm worried about guys, you know, falling down those stairs, taking parts down to work on a truck, you know, or banging their head. We transport the crude oil that's dropped off for the volunteers and whatnot behind the fire station, and we pump it into 55-gallon drums and strap them into a loader and drive them across town, and then transfer them into our tank after we screen them and screen it and whatnot, make sure there's nothing in there that can harm our waste oil furnace that heats that building. And that's kind of an inefficient, and there's other concerns that I have there with that, the way we transport it. But, you know, this is our above-ground diesel fuel tank. There's also another one behind Central Fire, for those of you that don't know. That's a diesel and gas, but they're both above ground. You know, you got to climb ladders to get up on them, and when there's ice and snow, that's a concern. And here's where we fuel up. So again, there's that set of stairs, our fueling, and whatnot. Nothing's undercover, and have you. And then again, back to the parking lot. So at the end of the day, the guys go home, and that's what they got to kind of traverse across to get to their personal vehicles after a 36-hour shift, a 48-hour shift. So, Chairman says, okay, so we know it's tough. It's not perfect down there. Where are we going? Well, that's what I'm doing here tonight. I think that it's time to kind of talk about some of this stuff. I've shed some light on it. It's out there. And now maybe perhaps people can start to understand some of the challenges we have on why some of the services that have been asked about, why we can't bring that to the town of Londonderry, at least in our current state. But what I've been doing patiently for 2 years too is also listening to a great deal of other people within the town too, and other challenges that the town has, like storage and whatnot. So really what I think needs to happen is we need to do, you know, perhaps a spatial needs analysis, do some sort of efficiency audit on how we do things and whatnot to determine what would be an appropriately sized facility. Examine the current location that we're at versus an alternate location. Just calm down. You know, we've been there a long time. I've got some ideas on where we could relocate. I know they're going to be controversial, but location, right? And so, you know, we certainly could do what we need to do there on that site and stay there. But if we're interested in solving some of the other challenges that Londonderry is facing, and incorporate that into this project, then I think perhaps maybe that's something worth discussing. All right.
So just for clarification
Sure.
purposes, certainly going to have this discussion here, but so people know, this all has to run through the CIP committee first.
100%. 100%. This is step one of many, if you will. I didn't think it would be appropriate to just, you know, jump right into the CIP process with at least, you know, enlightening people to why we're entering the CIP process. And that's kind of what this is. Okay. Just information. This is just ideas. I got a lot of them banging around in my head. Some are good, some are horrible, and whatnot. So we're going to work our way through it. You know, what are the things that we would like to look at? Fleet management for all vehicles, whether it be our equipment, town hall equipment, perhaps assisting fire department in some fashion and whatnot with the design of the facility. A fuel farm that is for all departments, schools, whatnot, all in one location of space that could free up potential space behind the central fire station. For those of you that don't know, the fire department actually does a lot of training down at our yard because they just don't have the room on their own properties to do what they do. So they'll come down and bring a wrecked vehicle or whatnot, and so that creates some operational efficiencies for them and challenges for them because even though they're training, you know, they get a call, they got to go, so they got to bring more people over across town to do that training than perhaps maybe just doing it right in their own backyard. At least that's my crude understanding from talking with the fire chief and some of his command staff. Relocate that waste oil drop-off. That would free up space at Central Fire Station. And it would also allow us to just have it there right on site for us to use and not have to transport it across the roadway. Free up some office space potentially, some storage space at Town Hall, which we have challenges in this building along with that in regards to that. There's potential for additional parking freed up at Town Hall. Relocating the drop-off center is something that I just threw in here because I know it's such a hot topic within this town. But I didn't get into this because it's really not my area to poke my nose into it or whatnot. That's the engineering department, environmental services, and what have you. But I think it's fairly obvious that we don't have to have a long-winded PowerPoint presentation like I've got going on right now. But to realize that they're remote down there, they don't have water, cell phone is sparse down there and whatnot, and it's a tough area that if you wanted to do year-round access, you really have to invest some money into that site. And so anyway, it might be worth exploring because if their facility was adjacent to ours, that would make it probably potentially possible. And create some more storage units. I talked to the PD. the chiefs and their command staff, they're always looking for places to store things that you don't even think about, you know, that they need from time to time, and it's creating some constraints for them in their own facilities. Storage for files and whatnot. We do pay to store a lot of our files and whatnot off-site, so perhaps it's time to think that we could do something, you know, in our facility that would keep it secure. And then there's the initiatives of Go Green. You know, we heard some presentations tonight talking about energy and where we're going. We know we can't stay the course of the way we've been doing it forever in our country. I think that's a global issue as well, and perhaps that's something that we explore in this project if we want to. Certainly the wash facility is one of my big things. We've got to start taking care of our equipment better with the way that we wash it and store it. It's just, this stuff is very costly. These trucks cost a lot of money. We've got to try and get some more longevity out of them. They're in aggressive elements, carrying the most aggressive materials and what have you, and we've got to start maintaining them in a better manner. And the list goes on and on. So, modern facility, I just picked these randomly off the internet, you know, of what some DPWs look like, but this would all be vetted out, you know, through a process of a design phase and whatnot after we do like a spatial needs analysis and what have you. So that's a fairly small one. This is a real grand one. You know, there's some that blend into the landscapes a little bit easier and whatnot. And then I chose this one because I actually thought it kind of looked like the police department. And so, you know, if we chose to bring something like that to this area, the central part of town, where there's water, where there's sewer, where there's natural gas, it would be easier to design a facility to meet our needs. Have more accommodating locker room. You can see the lockers are oversized for all their turnout gear. I love this locker room because you can clean it easily. I mean, there's nothing there obstructing a mop or a broom. Even the bench is designed in a manner that keeps things. These guys get a lot of dirt and mud. Even if we had our whole place was paved, you still get a lot of material on your work boots at the end of the workday. You know, muster rooms are designed now for, you know, multifunctional. You can have meetings. You can use it as a lunchroom. You can use it for a training area. And, you know, for when we're there, long hours and whatnot, they can have enough room to make something quick to eat or heat up and get back at it. Fleet management, I can't impress upon you enough. I mean, we need a facility. You know, we contract out some of our stuff to go and get worked on. I like this photo because it shows a town car being worked on. It shows the ability for a fire apparatus to be pulled in there if they need to do something to their piece of equipment. You've got the lifts, you've got the bays, you've got the modernized equipment, so that we can do a lot of that in-house stuff right here, which I think we can personally do better ourselves than sending it out. And some of the costs that we're seeing sending this stuff out, the challenges that you know all the trades are facing right now. Some of these hourly rates are just incredible, and plus the timeliness, because they're shorthanded. You know, we can't just send a salt truck out in February and send it up to Donovan Springs and say, hey, you know, we can get it back in 3 weeks. You know, a lot can happen in 24 hours in the middle of February. Never mind a couple of weeks. So we would have the ability to do that. This is a very large style DPW where they have pretty much all their pieces of equipment undercover. They do have an upper mezzanine and whatnot, but it kind of gives you the idea of what the scope of what I'm talking about and the appropriate drainage in the flooring. Their parts room as well, stored, neat, clean, orderly. And then again, being able to wash on the equipment safely, adequately, and preserve the life of that expensive truck. That's the type of wash bay that you can design. You see the catwalk so they can get up on top. They're not climbing on the truck. They're not falling off of it. They're not doing it outside where it's cold. You've got your floor drain that, you know, leads to recapturing some of that, and then making sure that it's not contaminated water going out into the wastelands and whatnot. You know, that's the type of fuel farm I'm talking about. I was involved with a process like that in my previous employment. Came out fantastic, serving the needs of that community well for a long time. And there's a lot of benefits, too, to having their tanks underground. we have to constantly add additives to our tanks that are above ground because the diesel fuel will gel up and whatnot, which is then harder on the trucks and creates more operational issues. It's all connected. You know, perhaps a larger style storage facility so that we have the right amount of clean, dry, effective material on hand. This one kind of looks like ours as well, but it's much larger. You can see the doors more accommodating for deliveries and what have you. And, you know, if you wanted a year-round drop-off center, again, I didn't really get into this too much, but if something like this was adjacent to us and you had it, you know, mostly undercover, but it was right, you know, adjacent to our backyard, then it'd be easy for us to, you know, perhaps go over and clear the snow real quickly and whatnot. And, you know, if that's something that wants to be explored by the town and whatnot, that's a different conversation for a different time. And, you know, go green. So where's some of my folks about? So you got your solar panels. This facility right here was built in Rochester. Ironically enough, we just had a UNHT squared training class down there. We sent some employees down to, and they were blown away with that facility. That's on a pretty small lot. They did a very good job at getting a lot compacted and on that site for, you know, material storage and everything else. You know, there are other things too that, you know, that I didn't put in this presentation too, but like the sand barrels around town, you know, that caused me a little bit of anxiety. You know, the people out there on the side of the roads in the dark, you know, there's limited daylight and, you know, they're getting stuff. And so perhaps, you know, there'd be an area that would be available 24 hours at a new facility that's accessible to the public. They could do it, you know, in under a light or whatnot. And then, you know, here we go. So electric vehicles are coming. You know, I'm not, my own personal thing, I'm not a big fan of them, but it's coming. And there's perhaps a lot of things. I've had discussions with the police department. You know, they see a lot of potential sometimes, and I don't want to speak for the police. I'm not. It's just very candid conversations. But you know, some of the smaller vehicles and things like that, you know, even the town vehicles and whatnot, certainly could go electric and into the future. And so, you know, if we were in close proximity to this area in the central part of town, you know, we could build something like this. This one is over in Europe. It's pretty fancy, but. And so we're just basically bound by the limitations of our facility. Maybe perhaps one of our councilors might recognize that tank in the back of that truck, but we put it to use. Thank you for the donation. And, you know, so if we had certain things, what could we perform? So if we had a vac jet truck, which we can't bring to where our current status is. So what we did there was fill that tank up with water because we had a clogged culvert and just kind of let gravity hopefully blow it, flush it out. And it worked. These guys get pretty ingenious at times, and it worked. But, you know, we could do some more jetting and drain lines. That would help us be with our MS4 compliance and whatnot, with cleaning of basins and what have you. Certainly vac jet trucks do a much better job at cleaning the basins than our old style type of clam truck. Street sweeping, we don't do it. We should be doing it. There certainly are places in town that we need it desperately, and that helps us with our MS4 compliance as well. We have guys still doing it the old-fashioned way at times, you know, using the old-fashioned broom and brooming up sand and using, you know, sometimes we do backpack blowers, but it's a beautiful spring day. We finally gotten through the rigors of winter, and everybody's got their windows open, and here comes us making noise and blowing sand and dust all over the place and coming in people's homes, and it makes for a miserable experience for them. So sometimes we have to just do it the old-fashioned way. You know, we could get into, you know, some mowers and perhaps lawn maintenance, and, you know, if we had a larger facility, maybe we could get summer help to come in and help us out with some of the mowing and whatnot. You know, college kids are always looking for work like that. They'll go and cut the grass and whatnot, but we just don't have the place to house them, or even the lawnmowers for that matter. Sidewalk machine, we could do the sidewalks. You know, a hot box, which is, you know, you can go and get asphalt, and, you know, you can go fill your potholes with that. That's going to last you far longer than cold patch will. But again, I can't justify buying a $50,000 to $75,000 piece of equipment or even a $100,000 sidewalk machine and go put it in the mud. You know, we can't do that. So we're our hands are tied. And then there's the other option too of, you know, bulk liquid for calcium and stuff that could help us in the wintertime when we get into these real cold, frigid times. Using liquid calcium, you know, I've seen it in my previous employment. I mean, sometimes we'll put out 3 rounds of salt here, and if you just did 1 round of salt with the sprayed on liquid calcium, you're good. You'll get another 6, 7, 8 hours out of that round. So you're saving money on the other end with not having to do so many repetitive salting operations. In the last few years, have really been a lot of this snow and sleet and ice and back and forth. So we're using a lot of salt. That's usually a larger portion of your budget. And so that's it. Sorry for the long amount of time that I took tonight, but I just want to be as informative as I can and entertain any questions that you might have at this time.
Dave, real quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an eye on another piece of property?
All right, you want me to let the cat out of the bag?
Sooner or later, it's coming out.
I will, but I'll be brief. But so the parcel that
Do you know what it
is
is?
right next to Town Hall here.
Yeah, I know what you want.
That we just discussed earlier about the apple orchard. But that 5 acres was bought with the idea or understanding that someday there may be a need to put a municipal facility there, and so I eyed it and I thought it's got sewer, it's got water, it's got natural gas, it's got a lot of sunlight for solar. We could take care of a lot of issues if we were located there. We would bring us into the central part of town. Responses to the other part of town would be easier. You think about, the amount of salt we have delivered to our facility, right? Almost 4,000 tons a year. Well, that's going to drive over Pillsbury Road, and it's going to drive over, High Range Road and everything else to get there. Let's keep them on the state roads, Let's keep them on 93 and right up 28 and up Mammoth Road. Let's not pound our roads down. That's just salt. Let's not talk about the gravel and everything else. So, that's a small thing, but it makes sense. And again, I could be selfish and just focus on public works needs, but again, like I stated at the beginning of this presentation, I've been a member of this community for almost 25 years. I've dealt with all kinds of leagues and volunteered and whatnot, and know a great deal amount of people in town. And, so I wouldn't be, recommending this if it wasn't something I thought would be of value to the community. And it would solve a lot of the struggles of the yesteryears and whatnot, and really set us up and prepare us, for the 600 acres that eventually is going to be developed at Woodmont. And we need to be ready for that. And I think, if we're going to take on a task of this size and have a good, healthy debate about it and discussion, we're not going to get everything, but I think we can solve a lot of the challenges that I've been listening to everybody talk about, while working for the town and then previously while living in the town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
how large was the facility in Rochester? Do you know?
I think it was roughly about 54,000 square feet.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to remember all the breakdowns.
The
of what they
picture
had.
made it look bigger.
Huh?
The picture made it look bigger.
Yeah, they broke it out into, and that's what they'll do. They'll gauge on well, how many offices we're going to have in there.
Right.
What type of user space you're going to have? How many trucks? Now, you don't want to just build it for just the 16 trucks we got.
No,
you
no.
want to kind of build it spec'd out so that you have room for more growth.
Right. I also see, at least on our GIS system mapping, that right now your buildings are using about 2.5 acres of land, and
Right.
you go a bit further beyond that with all the land usage you're actually using, about 6.2 acres. I guess the real question would be for our assistant manager is how much more of that land would really be usable to build a much larger facility, as we already have that land slated for this facility.
Well, again, that's what a lot of this study would vet out and see if that would work there. Is it realistic? Is it the right spot? And if it does, it opens up the doors for other opportunities. So what would become of where we are now on High Range Road? Maybe that's where the drop-off center goes. You don't need all the sewer and water infrastructure, but at least we got water there.
Right.
Maybe maybe we sell it. Maybe we use it as an offsetting revenue. I'd like to see the drop-off center adjacent to our facility, because I think that gives the town the better ability to, I think that's no secret, right? I think everybody has heard that in one fashion or another, that they want more access to the drop-off center. And I think the only way that you get there is by having it, located closer to us, so that logistically you can make it work. That's one opinion anyway.
And I guess the follow-up with your lack of accessibility to the trucks within your own facilities right now, how long does it take when you have a plow truck that breaks down to be able to get it back on the road with everything else that's going on in the facility, with how tight quarters it is, or you have other vehicles in there? And
Yeah. That's a great question. It's a challenging one to answer. I'll just use the last example of the last storm of the season. So one of them broke down. You probably perhaps saw it parked out there out on 102 at the end of one of the cul-de-sacs that's adjacent to it, across from Home Depot. And unfortunately, all it was a starter. But we just didn't have the ability to, one, get it back to our shop because the mechanics are out plowing. And so, we don't have a full-time chief mechanic that would have been at the yard, loading trucks, keeping the yard open, and then if that happens, he could respond out there and whatnot. So we had to abandon it and leave it there for the remainder of the storm. We had another breakdown happen, but we were able to limp it back and then work on it, and again in tight quarters because of that one-door access only. And again, when we're plowing, it takes 4 or 5 hours, and that storm was taking us about 6-7 hours to get around the beat. So you lose an hour or two out on your road, it's tough. It gets very challenging. I had some grave concerns. I was going around just V-plowing and just opening a hole up down the middle of the road. I conversed with both police and fire department during that event. Hey, if you're having challenges getting around or whatnot, we've made some adjustments for the fire department so that their truck that they have that is relatively old, we're able to stay with their crews and go out in case they found themselves in those scenarios. But it's just my concern, as an emergency responder, as the head of one of the big responders in town, I have concerns about not meeting the needs of the community. I'm not saying that there's anything to get all of alarmed about, but as we grow, the challenges are going to become more steep.
Well, and someone who works in construction, the amount of what you're showing out of examples of slips and falls and people potentially getting hurt, at least within your own facility, let alone throughout town, by not being able to get your trucks back out there, that's a grave concern to myself.
Yeah.
Last thing we need is someone getting hurt just being able to do their daily job, let alone trying to get back out there, hurry to snowplow again. That's a huge problem. Frankly, I'm surprised that we've let this go on as long as we have.
Yeah, we've had some bangs and bumps and bruises and cuts and whatnot. We're very fortunate no one's gotten gravely hurt. But to your point, where we're behind the 8 ball, and then so employees are rushing. They're a great workforce. I can't say enough about them. They understand what we're charged with, and so when you're rushing, that is usually when the worst case scenario happens. So, thank you.
All right, so we'll digest this.
Okay.
And we'll figure out what next steps are.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to flip the agenda around here a little bit. How many people are here to be interviewed for pickleball?
Let's do this.
All right, so we're going to move to pickleball right now.
Yep.
Thank you for your patience sitting here. Very much appreciated. I have a list of folks for pickleball. I'll start with Dawn Cava. Is that correct?
That's me, Cava, yes.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good. First time ever in a town hall, very interesting.
Well, we'll try to treat you with kindness.
Thank you.
So, hi. So the way we normally do these things is we have your form that you filled out.
Okay.
Generally, we offer somebody an opportunity that if they want to just make an opening statement, they can, if you're comfortable with that, or we can just, the councils will just go through and ask you questions. It's your choice.
Questions is fine.
Fantastic. So, works for me. I'll start with Ted.
You said you're a pickleball enthusiast. Tell us a bit more.
I just started
experience.
playing a couple of years ago and just love the sport and just really feel that it's a great environment to meet people. I think I could play with my young kids, my nephews and stuff like that, very family friendly and just different than any other sport that I've played. Big into soccer, which you can kind of do that too, but it's just, as far as it brought me a sense of community of when I get to go meet people and play. So I just think it's important that we try to have some kind of facility in town that we can play here too, since everybody else is doing it.
Thank you.
Pick this up for me. I'll be right back.
All set, thank you.
All right, I just want to start out by saying, actually, all that I have to say is thanks for volunteering. As we can tell, this is a very important thing in the community, and your time is very valued, so thank you for doing that. Mr. Butler?
I'm all set.
I'd like to thank you for stepping up.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, so thank you very much, Dawn, and we'll have Christine come up.
Christine.
Thank you very much for volunteering. If you'd like, as previous, you can have an opening statement, or
No, we can do it the same way. That
Same
works for
way?
me.
All right, I like that.
I have no prepared remarks.
Fair enough. Mr. Combs?
I gotta say, having a small business owner in town being involved in this board and
Yeah.
having someone who's been involved in the community as long as you have, I think would be a true asset.
Well, and it's kind of fun because all of my activities in town have been kid-related.
Mm.
And now that my kids are off in college
Yeah.
and I have activities that I like, it's kind of nice.
I like that.
Yeah, because that's why I'm doing it, is because I play. I obviously go to other towns to play.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy it. But I also see that as much as I want it here for me, I think it's good for the town, both for the sense of community and long range. Pickleball is huge, and it's huge money. And colleges now have club teams. So they're now intercollegiate club tournaments. So it's eventually going to trickle to the high schools. So it's only going to benefit the town at some point if there are already courts here when the high school says, oh, we really need a place because we need to have a pickleball team because kids now want to play pickleball in college. So they have to start somewhere. So I think it's here for the long haul because it's a baby sport.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and I'll echo my sentiments stated earlier. Thank you very much for volunteering. I do have one question. You mentioned in your town bank form that you got into pickleball about 6 months ago. Can you talk a little bit how it was introduced to you and what piqued your interest?
Well, the gentleman I was sitting next to earlier comes in the store every single day, and he plays pickleball every day. So he was always talking to me about it. And I said, it sounds like fun. So he and I went over to Derry to the Alexander Carr Park new courts, and he taught me how to play in one afternoon. And I just thought it was great fun. And then I spent a long time trying to find places that I could play after work. And through Facebook and Google, and found the Litchfield Pickleball Club and signed up for that and started playing over there. And I wish I could play more. I only get to play once a week, but and now I'm looking forward to learning how to play outside because apparently that's very different than playing inside. The wind or something like that.
Thank you. Ms. Butler?
No, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Just one quick question. You put on your form that you're really only available in the late afternoons, early evenings. If the meeting went from like 7 to 8, would that be an issue? Like
Oh,
most
this
meetings-
I consider
yeah.
this evening.
Okay, perfect.
I
I'm sorry.
work from 6 in the morning till 1 or 3 in the afternoon.
Gotcha.
So that's when I can be available.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Move on to Jim.
He left.
He left?
The man
Okay.
sitting next to me.
Thank you.
He left.
Michael Nader. Good evening, sir.
Hey, gentlemen.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
We'll follow the same as
pattern.
Same old, same old.
previous, and we'll start with Mr. Combs.
Yeah, just a quick opening statement. I mean, I'm a very avid player, been playing about 5 years. Play all over southern New Hampshire, played in Florida on occasion in the wintertime and everything. It's getting so popular, I don't have to pump it up at all, but what's we're finding increasingly is it's getting very difficult to play even outside of town, so I play in Derry as well, I play in Litchfield, play in Manchester, play in Concord. The number of members over the last couple of years have just exploded to the point where some of the facilities are starting to say they're only going to let town people play at their facilities. So if you don't have a town facility as big as this is getting, it can be very difficult to play. So I guess, I played today, I played this afternoon. I have time to play, but
I like that.
All right. Mr. Combs.
Well, I'm glad to see the volunteerism. I got to say, I'm really impressed with all the new people who've wanted to step forward.
Good.
So often do we not find anyone who wants to volunteer for positions, and I really want to commend everyone who's stepped forward so far. That's all I got to say.
I would like you to talk a little bit about your project management experience. I personally think, with my experience in project management, I think it adds a lot of valuable skills to bring everything together. Can you talk a little bit about how you can bridge that gap into a committee like this?
Sure. I mean, there's a reason I put that down there. I don't have project management skills as far as, town projects and things like that, but I have a career in sales. I was 40 years in the beer business, which is of interest to a lot of people. But I worked for the Miller Coors Brewery for 25 years. But it was always project management. It was different sales teams, different marketing projects, and so that's all we really did. So it was at a higher level.
Okay. And
Yeah.
thank you very much for your willingness to
my
to
pleasure.
move this forward.
I'm all set.
All right.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, gentlemen.
As a former Vietnam vet,
Yes.
you never got what you deserved in the thank you, so thank you. Thank you for your service and for doing what you did.
I am not a vet. I'm not sure where that came from.
Who's the Vietnam vet? It's not on yours?
No.
That was Jim.
That was Jim.
Did I miss Jim?
You missed.
Yeah, not a problem.
I had to step out for a minute, but thank you.
That's okay.
We're on the
Did I miss Jim?
Yeah.
Miss Jim.
Jim left.
Jim left.
Sorry, I had to step out for some air for a minute.
and we're on the Brian.
We're on to Brian.
We're on to Brian.
Brian available?
Brian here. All right, so I would suggest that we, if you want to appoint anybody tonight, we can certainly do that, but we need to, I'm assuming that Heather is going to apply here at some point. I mean, if you want to appoint tonight, we can appoint tonight, or we can, wait for more applicants and appoint at the next meeting. It's up to you guys.
Well,
I'm good to make a motion to appoint the slate of 5 people who put their names down as 5 regular members. And if we get 2 more people, we can appoint them as alternates.
Alternates.
Well, do we meet Brian?
No, we didn't, or Jim. May I propose amendment to your motion? Might I suggest that we appoint the 3 that we interviewed as full-time members, leave the 2 alternates open, and do that tonight?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to appoint Dawn, Christine, and Michael.
Correct, and I second.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. See the clerk and be sworn in, please. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your
Thank
patience
you.
this evening.
It's, no.
Okay.
Very positive.
Resolution reconstituting municipal aggregation committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this one
Mr.
is.
Town Manager, I forgot you were over there.
It's been a while. So this one is straightforward. The council will recall that in pursuit of our goal to offer community choice aggregation, we formed the Municipal Aggregation Committee sometime last year. That was a standalone committee. And after the town council stood up the utility committee, it seemed to make sense to simply ask the utility committee to take up the work of the municipal aggregation committee and to replicate its membership and slate of officers. So that is the resolution that you have before you this evening. I have discussed it with the utilities committee, I think at their first meeting, and they seemed agreeable to that.
Any questions? Accept the motion to approve 2023-11.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. That's one done. I'm going to skip over elderly exemption for just a second, and I'm going to move to roadway maintenance trust. For the town treasurer to authorize $35,000 for roadway maintenance trust.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm John Trotter, Director of Engineering. Back in April of 2023, we put out to bid the Grenierfield Road signal improvements. What that is basically the controlling cabinet. It's the brains of any signalized intersection. It's where the preemption equipment is stored, the backup batteries. Again, that cabinet that we have up at Grenierfield Road was installed back in
circa 2001. It was just prior to all the roadway improvements that were done up by the airport, the industrial drive, beginning of Pettingill Road, the relocation of Harvey Road, and that was actually installed by, constructed and paid for by the Manchester Airport. It was a backup cabinet that they had experienced a number of accidents, but we got nearly 25 years out of it, so again, it's just time. So we had put it out to bid, received bids ranging from 31,000 all the way up to 78,000 from 3 different vendors. And again, the equipment that that the vendor is proposing to install there are similar to the other 4 signalized intersections that the town is responsible for. Those are basically Harvey and Pettingill, Industrial in Pettingill, and Innovation Way in Pettingill. So,
Question.
it's all it
Questions?
is.
Yes.
John, what did you say the bids were?
31,400 from East Coast Signals out of Deerfield, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Second was 41,140 from Electric Light out of Cape Nedick, Maine, and 75,550 from Molson Electric out of Biddeford, Maine.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
where exactly on Grenier Field is this location?
At the intersection of Webster and
okay.
Grenier Field.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Just north of the North Fire Station.
Mm-hmm. So is it on the Grenier Field side, or is it closer to the Webster side?
It's at the intersection of Webster and Grenier Field.
Right, but it comes to a T, so is it,
No, yeah, at the T.
yeah, so is it on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of Webster?
North or south side, just the box location.
Oh, the box itself?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
box is located at the south southwest corner.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Anything further?
Yeah, real quick question. You're looking for 35,000. None of the bids align with that?
So what again, Jim, just so I have
Yeah.
a little extra in there.
Okay, just so I understand it.
It's just like, the Harvey Road culvert was
Understood.
1.5, it was 1.4 and change.
Fine.
And you're selecting East Coast Signal?
Yes, yeah.
And you said it was about 31?
Yeah, 31.4.
31.
So 10% for
Yeah.
contingency, basically.
It's for unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
It's good with me.
Anything further? Accept the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Affirmative. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Trotti.
Steve, sorry to put you off there. I figured the elderly exemption thing would be a little bit longer conversation.
I hope not so,
Well, I
Mr.
mean, I'm
Chairman.
just hedging my bets.
good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council. So this is the first of 2 resolutions that we'll be bringing forward this year that deal with the elderly and disabled exemptions. This is about the qualifications for the income and asset limits. You may remember back at the April 10th meeting, I made a presentation at which the council looked favorably upon adjusting the qualification standards for income of single people and married people, and the asset limit to those that were adjusted for the cost of living for Social Security. That's what I brought forward with a small amount of rounding just to make the communication a little bit more efficient.
Understood.
All right, so I think what we talked about is for next budget season to look at what Wyndham does for those 80 and over, right?
Correct.
And we're going to revisit that at a later date.
We're going to revisit that at a later date with a recommendation for any adjustments to the exemption amounts for the categories as well.
Okay.
And we'll be able to give you the fiscal, an estimate of the fiscal impact if you were to go to 100%.
I just want to make sure we do that going into a budgeting season so we do it correctly. But it's definitely something on our radar.
Yeah.
Anything?
All set.
All set.
I'll accept the motion to approve 2023-10.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate
Thank
the
you,
patience.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Steve.
your patience this evening.
You want a full vote?
What?
You want a full vote?
Didn't I get a full vote?
No.
Who didn't vote?
All of
I
us.
don't-
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'm starting to move a little too quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Next item.
Minutes?
I'll accept approval of the minutes of April 24th, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Minutes are approved. Pickleball task force is done. Clarification of utility committee opening and appointment of alternate member to the Londonderry Utility Committee. That's a lot of words.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. So there was some confusion at the last meeting, for which I apologize. A lack of clarity about how many open seats, if any, there were on the utility committee. And Mr. Wiles, the chairman, was kind enough to email me that evening, setting out what the current membership is and the fact that there is one open alternate position on that board. So the council has one seat to fill on that board.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Could I make a motion, John?
That's up to you.
I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Deb Paul to the alternate position.
I think we need to actually put that out to the public first before we can take a motion.
It's up to you guys.
I think we should put it out to the public.
I agree.
Motion dies without a second. Okay. Next item would be liaison reports.
To have a liaison report for the schools. Bear with me, please. It will be brief. All right. So the just a couple updates. Elementary school completed a 3-month Battle of the Bands contest where the students on teams for each school competed on knowledge they gathered for reading 15 books. I concluded with a representative student teams for each school battling the middle school, and this year Matthew Thornton took home the trophy. The student performance data from the winter was presented with the results of the iReady math and reading. All the results were moving in a positive direction for all grades. After 3 years hiatus, the middle school completed a successful trip for the 8th graders to Washington, D.C. 229 students and staff made a 4-day trip. Of their most memorable stops was the Arlington National Cemetery, where students were presented wreaths at the gravestones of 2 Londonderry soldiers. These soldiers were William Blake Marston, which is a son of Nancy Marston, who was a counselor at LMS for many years, and Peter Shome, son of former LHS teacher Mary Shome. The school board voted to accept the Beyond School Enrichment Grant for $220,428, which will go to fund the Summer Math Academy this year. The Math Academy has been provided funding, has previously funded by the COVID ESSER grants, so that this will allow those remaining funds to be applied to the Academy for summer of 2024. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have 2 updates.
Thank you.
Solid waste. They had 3 successful Beautified Londonderry Saturdays, so thank you to all the volunteers. Household hazardous waste collection is Saturday, May 20th from 9 to 12. It's going to be in Derry, and if you have any questions about what the items are, it's on the town website, and you can check that out, and it'll tell you exactly what's going to be accepted and what's not accepted. The utility committee, a lot of great members, great volunteers, very engaged at the last meeting. They all want to help. They all want to participate. We decided to make 4 subcommittees so that everyone can kind of focus on their specialty. And we, at the next meeting on June 6th, we'll be having New Hampshire DES there to make a presentation and to give us, answer any questions we have.
Terrific. The only thing I have is that Old Home Day is coming upon us quickly. The committee is fast at work, and things are progressing, nicely. Anything else for liaison reports? Okay, town manager report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have several items tonight. First is I wanted to notify the council about an award that our town clerk, Sherry Farrell, received recently. I nominated Sherry to be honored at the Hudson VFW's annual Loyalty Day event. And in doing so, I stated as follows: Londonderry Town Clerk Sherry Farrell exemplifies the virtues of loyalty and patriotism that you write about in your letter. Sherry goes above and beyond the normal duties of a town clerk. First, she is a cheerleader for everything Londonderry has to offer and is an active leader in our community, participating in civic events and exemplifying civic virtue and volunteerism. In addition to this work, she plays a leading role overseeing federal, state, and local elections in Londonderry. What could be more patriotic and loyal to the nation and the community than overseeing and safeguarding the defining feature of our democracy? Sherry does all of this with a smile and never says a negative word about anyone. It is my privilege to nominate her for recognition by your post on Loyalty Day. Mr. Chairman, as you know, the town clerk was out of the country for that event, but I was happy and privileged to accept that for her. So my thanks to Sherry for everything that she does.
Oh, that you can clap for. It's only during public comment.
On January 26, 2023, in my role as town manager, I issued so-called trespass orders to Chris and Laura Gandia. A trespass order is simply notification to someone that he or she is not authorized to be present at a particular location. Trespass orders are issued by owners or those charged with management of property. Under Section 4.6D of the Town Charter and RSA 37.5, the town manager is the individual charged with management of town property. This matter did not involve the town council. Trespass orders are issued every day in New Hampshire. Often they are communicated orally by the police department where the property is located after speaking with an authorized person. I placed the orders in writing and arranged for notification to be made to the Gandias through normal channels. I released the trespass orders on May 4th. I anticipated the public controversy and the harsh criticism, mostly directed at me, this action would generate, and time has proven that prediction true. Yet, as has occurred frequently in my first 15 months in office, I did not shrink from a decision simply to avoid controversy. I made the decision I believe to be in the town's best interests, which is my primary and most important responsibility when making any decision in my role as town manager. I do not plan to elaborate upon my reasoning any further. I acknowledge that people want to know more about this matter. It is not a question of me not wanting to or being afraid to address it. In fact, it would be easier if I could. However, there are some topics that are simply not appropriate for the town manager to discuss at a town council meeting, and this is one of those topics.
Just to reiterate again, as was said earlier, this is not a town council issue. There is pending litigation, and it's not something we're going to engage in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was visited last week by Peter Logue, I think I'm saying it correctly. He's the general manager at the Staples on Nashua Road. He wanted to notify the town about a recycling program that they have. Anyone can drop off their household electronics at no cost. He said there's no hitch, there's no gimmicks. I wanted to share this with you in hopes that you could share it with the community. I know that I've got a lot of old electronics in my basement, and I imagine other people do as well. So I wanted to alert the community to that. We are under agreement as of today for the 35 Gilcrest property. The purchase and sales agreement that I signed this evening has a contingency that requires the town council and the Conservation Commission to approve the terms of the transaction. So look for that in your packet and on the agenda at a future meeting. I wanted to give an update on where I've been spending a lot of my time recently, and that's in the area of 91A. I received on May 9th the following right-to-know request. All records, no matter what form, including but not limited to printed documents, electronic documents, emails, or any other form of records regarding and relating to any no trespass orders issued by the town manager and/or the Londonderry Town Council for the town of Londonderry for the last 20 years, 1/1/2003 to 1/1/2023, and that entailed 4 hours of my time. 2 hours of my time, 2 hours of IT time, and ultimately 8 video files were produced. I received a request on 5/5/23. I would like to request accounts payable invoices and general ledger details for expenditures made by the town of Londonderry to Sheehan Finney for any services relevant to A, no trespass orders, and B, advising Mr. Malaguti on the town's reorganization plan. Requested date range for the second item is any expenses between 2/1/23 and 4/30/23 to include any April incurred payables processed during the month of May. That I acknowledge, taking 0.2 hours of my time. And
Excuse me, Mike?
yes,
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
you're talking about these 91As.
yes,
Could you please let us know who's filing the 91As?
certainly, Councilor
Thank you.
Butler. With respect to the first request that I referenced, that was filed by L. Gandia. The second request that I filed, that I reacted to, was filed by J. Esposito. And as I said, that entailed 0.2 hours of my time to acknowledge that, receive it, and process it. I expect that will take a heavier lift in order to fulfill it ultimately. On 5/5, I received another request from J. Esposito. I would like to request documents sufficient to establish communications between the New Hampshire ACLU and the town of Londonderry to include Sheehan Finney regarding no trespass orders for multiple citizens. Requested date for this correspondence and records request is 5/4/23. That took me a quarter of an hour to respond to, and I produced 8 pages of material. On 4/21/23, I received a request from Kay Coyle. All emails and text messages exchanged between Town Councilor John Farrell and Town Manager Mike Malaguti. The time period of this request can be limited to December 1st, 2022 to April 21st, 2023. That took 12.5 hours to process. And just for reference, Mr. Chairman, 977 pages of material was produced. At my hourly rate, based on a 40-hour work week, that cost the town $781. Had I sent it to Sheehan Finney, as most towns would have been required to do, it would have cost, depending on the hourly rate of the billing attorney, between $3,400 and $5,000.
Question, Mike.
Yes.
That individual, are they representing anybody?
The indication was that he was representing a client.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, so we're looking about, and this is for the past 2 weeks?
So this takes us back to 4/21.
Okay. So far, and you said the one that .2 was just research and response, but that'll be a heavy lift. So currently, we're looking at 17 and a half hours. And as you indicated, at your billable rate, $781, when it could be between $3,400 and $5,000, correct? Did I hear you correctly?
You did, and I just want to clarify that this isn't money that the town's actually paying me on top of my salary. It's just a representation of hours
How
worked.
you're spending your time.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I neglected to mention that the most recent request that I just mentioned, the 977 pages, it looks like that.
And just to confirm, we will always adhere to the state law for 91A requests.
We've been complimented on it by some of the individuals who have been making these requests in the past, and my practices have not changed over the time that I've been representing the town or serving as town manager.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Mike, are we charging for copies, or is it going electronic?
Our current practice is to send everything electronic, and that's something that we've been complimented on. I will tell you that based on the volume of requests and the municipal resources that I've had to devote, I am considering proposing changes to that practice. But for the time being, we're adhering to it, and it's something that I think has assisted us in the past in being as transparent, as responsive as possible.
Accessible.
Accessible, correct.
So what people need to understand, all all those pages there, when someone asks for something that is between the town manager and I, they're talking about when he said something to the town council, town manager, and so includes all those as well, includes all legal correspondence, which then has to be stopped and redacted. So many hours have to be spent going through, so it's not a matter of just printing them off. Gotta go through them one by one.
That's exactly right, Mr. Chairman. I think I spent something like between 2 and 4 hours printing off emails from my inbox, and then the redaction process that you reference. It's definitely a heavy lift.
The original request was for a year, and it was changed to
I
just that period
don't
of time.
recall what the original request was specifically, but I recall that it was vastly broader.
Okay.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, I'll do a couple more of these just so that you can continue to have a flavor, and then I'll get to the bottom line. J. Esposito, 426 of 23, documents sufficient to establish who at the town hall initiated, authorized a no trespass stay-away order for citizens Laura Gandia and Chris Gandia. All correspondence between the town manager, town council, and police department regarding both stay-away orders. Copies of records regarding document service, delivery of the order to the citizens, including any cooperative effort with other PDs. Documents sufficient to establish a proposed expiration date, withdrawal date, if any such exists. Requested range 2023-0201 to 2023-0425. And I took an hour of time and produced 7 documents. Mr. Chairman, I have this log going back for the requests that have arrived either in my office or required my significant attention going back a year. There are, interesting requests that involved the Lions Hall last summer that took, a significant amount of time. There were, a variety of topics. But the bottom line is this, Mr. Chairman. As Councilor Butler pointed out, every citizen is entitled to avail themselves of this law. I'll come back to the point that I made and amplify it in a minute. But we've been regularly complimented on how quickly we respond to these requests and how seriously we take them. But the bottom line is this, Mr. Chairman. A conservative estimate, I believe, of time, municipal resources, specifically my time, devoted to all of this over the past year, 151.75 hours. That's $9,484 at my salary rate. Had we had to send this out to legal counsel, it would have cost between $41,700 and $60,580. Again, everybody is entitled to avail themselves of this law, but it is not without a cost to the taxpayer.
Mike, how many hours again?
151 and some change.
0.95.
And as I pointed out, Mr. Chairman, it's interesting to hear some of the discontent with how things are going, specifically with regard to accessibility, access, and 91A. I have an email here from someone who spoke tonight, May 11th, 2022. Thank you for all, this is addressed to me, thank you for all you do. You are a true asset to the community. Your hard work is appreciated. And that person was not, speaking favorably of how things are going. I have another email, September 26, 2022, by someone who also spoke tonight and was not, speaking favorably about how things are being handled at the council level and town manager level. Appreciate you as always, is the statement. I have another email here from that same individual, August 25th, 2022. To the town's credit, the current town manager, that's me, has been more responsive and forthcoming than the last, and I believe Mr. Malaguti has done a very fair job. June 24th, 2022, from the same individual. Thank you, sir. You have been responsive and pleasant in the past when we have corresponded, and it is greatly appreciated. Many of us really do have the town's best interests at heart. That is what I have to say about 91A this evening, Mr. Chairman. I did also want to address something that I heard in public comment that you found significant enough to address. I also found it significant enough to address, and that is the issue of Woodmont Commons. The difference between Ms. Perez's property, her residential property, and Woodmont Commons is that, of course, Woodmont Commons is a phased development. It is a decades-long project, and it is certainly true that specific plans were not made for sewer capacity at the time the agreement was signed. But what I can tell you is that, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, we have a development agreement, which is very specific about what the town will bring to the table and what Woodmont will bring to the table, and the fact that the parties are required under the development agreement that was gone over ad nauseum, I would imagine, at the time, very carefully. The parties are required to participate, to cooperate towards provisioning the PUD area with adequate utility service. And it's very specific about the different sources of funding that can go into that, a mix of public-private funding, including potentially federal grant funding. So nothing was missed. This is how projects of this scale take place. And so I would disagree with the comment that something is off or something is wrong here. There's nothing off and there's nothing wrong. This is exactly how projects of this scope and magnitude develop. The other thing I also take issue with is the use of the word miraculously. I do think it suggests that something untoward is happening. And I think that my staff and I would be happy to answer any questions that Ms. Perez has in the future. I know that the Assistant Town Manager attempted to answer Ms. Perez's questions on Friday, and I'm troubled by the use of that word. And Mr. Chairman, that is all I have this evening.
Sure. Mr. Malaguti, I just want to say thank you very much for all that you are investing into the community. I know it's not easy, and I just want to commend your professionalism, your attention to detail, and your ability to look at things judicially, if that's the right word. But I really appreciate that, and I think the community benefits from that, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. That means a great deal to me, and I would thank you for doing the same for the town as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
With his comments about how much time he's had to unfortunately spend on these 91As, I know obviously it would cost quite a bit more to have our legal team to go through these items, but I would think that our town manager's time is more well spent managing the town and the various duties that he needs to do. Do we want to have a further conversation about this at some point in time, about analyzing how we want to go forward on these items?
We certainly can do that. That's certainly something we can even put in an
And
agenda.
it's about 4 weeks of time that he spent.
Well, that doesn't really include all the other legal pieces, doesn't include what
Exactly.
the school has spent on it.
Oh,
I'm
agreed.
getting numbers anywhere ranging from the school between, $10,000 and $25,000 in people's time. There's a lot of money being spent, and at some point, it has to come from somewhere.
Right.
So I have to sadly report, I am generally sitting as the chair. The chair usually receives service on any lawsuits against the town. As I was out of town, I authorized our attorney to receive service on the most recent lawsuit. Most recent lawsuit that I received service on was former councilor Deb Paul is suing the town of Londonderry, taking legal action against the town of Londonderry, because she wants copies of documents that were confidential privileged documents from the period of time that she sat on the town council. You were all sent this service, I believe. It's disappointing. I mean, it's not that these documents weren't available when she was a town councilor. They were. So we now will be spending, I don't know how much money, thousands of dollars, going to Superior Court on something that we've already explained to folks. And this is another 91A, petition. And it's privileged, confidential employee documents.
So
So, I mean, I don't know anything else about the
no,
lawsuit.
that's okay. I
did check with our attorney to make sure this is a public document before I spoke about
yeah.
it, but those are just the facts.
Okay, so.
So it's disappointing.
Real quick question. Ron brought up about having Ms. Paul as an alternate. Is that,
I believe that
Can
would be a
that
conflict
happen?
of interest.
I
Huh?
don't think that should really be discussed here.
Oh,
If you-
okay.
If you want to have
That's
a
fine.
discussion about
Sure.
things like that,
Sure.
we should probably do that with legal counsel.
be more than happy?
Agreed.
I don't know that that should be something, I really don't like talking about people in public about those kind of things.
Okay.
It's always been our policy in the past, and when someone has something that's going on, we take it to our attorney in non-meeting and talk about it there. Because I don't want anyone to be disparaged.
Assistant Town Manager report.
Pardon me?
The assistant town manager?
I'm moving to it.
Whenever you're ready.
Please proceed.
A little bit of positive news.
Terrific.
I conducted a work session with the planning board on May 3rd that was very well received, and it's mostly in regard to our development review process and some improvements that we're making that have already been implemented, and you can see the effectiveness of them in our last week's meeting on the 10th. So just to highlight that and some progress.
Fantastic.
I thought that was well-done improvements, and I could already tell from the people who are presenting to the planning board were very appreciative.
Alrighty, is there anything further this evening?
That's progress.
Okay, one second here, I'm just trying to pull my calendar up. The actual next meeting, I'm trying to get us back on calendar track here, we have a holiday. Our actual next meeting is going to be June 5th at 7 PM. So I'm just trying to get us back on calendar.
Not the
so-
30th, like it says?
Not the 30th like it says.
June
We'll
30th?
move to June 5th so that we can try to start
May
back in
30th.
more of a regular cadence.
So the 5th and 19th?
I'm gonna check with the town manager first before I say beyond the 5th.
Right.
Make sure that we're clear for
Although
either
the 19th can get tricky.
See, what's gonna happen is we're gonna go either the 19th or the 26th, then we're gonna go to summer schedule, possibly proposing the 17th of July and the 14th of August, with hold a tentative date of the 28th of August. But we'll be going to summer schedule after the 2 meetings in June. But I wanna check with the town manager first to make sure whether the 19th or the 26th works best.
Yeah, I know the 19th is Juneteenth, so I don't know if the town
That may
hall
not-
has it off.
And again, that may not work best, and, and because
Right.
there'll be a little bit of time between the 17th and the 19th, that would put us a full month out, so I want to check in with him.
Of
first.
course, agreed.
Thank you, Mr.
So June 5th, I said, would be the next one, and then we'll check in on that. Anything further this evening? With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. We're adjourned.